Plus, Ultra presents The Grey Lodge. Welcome to Hyperborea, speculative economies of a hyperspace kingdom. This one is for you, Mike, and for you, Solar, even though I'm a little annoyed with you. But this is our syncretic economic space. So, I don't know. We're going to talk about lots of interesting, cool, and I think we'll push the boundary a little on this one because we kind of know what the space is, right? Like we kind of understand this is like magic, this is in consent, this is in synthesis, and it also is in bodhicitta, and it's also in middle path, and it's also in emptiness. So, with all that being said, what are we? We're the Grey Lodge. We're a group of meta magicians, and we're all friends, and we do this crazy project every Friday night, right? And I don't just do it by myself. And I think that's the most incredible thing of all. And I've obviously, I'm honored to know all of you, and I'm honored that I can work with you on all the projects. So thank you guys so much. And I think we'll do a little preview of, I'm going to change things up. So this is credit to Brother Joshua, who knows me so well, such a skillful being. We'll call him Frater Grandpa this week, right? Right, Joshua? That's okay. He knows. I told him. We had a long talk about this. But, he suggested to me that maybe a more Kabbalistic act as a king would be, he didn't say it quite like this, but he knows to like kind of assuage my ego and, throw in some, I mean, y'all know already, okay? But he knows flattery gets you everywhere with me. You just have to tell me I'm smart, and then I'm like, yeah, okay. But so he was like, yeah, maybe a king does this. Maybe a king is generous in this way, and maybe they cede space. And then last night, Josh and I did a recording with Jamie Paul Lamb, who really was it was a very radical proposition he was making. Almost non-dual, not quite, but his idea of magic was really interesting. And the way he even dealt with goetic spirits was really fucking interesting, to be honest. Like, he just used tarot cards and a sigil. So, talk about Spartan magic. But he knew everything. He was like, he could like cite Agrippa, then he was like, yeah, the Solomonic keys, they're kind of like shit. And then we talked about the Skinner tables for a bit. So it was a very interesting conversation in the sense that he knew the traditional material, but he also made a very pragmatic decision. He even said that word. He's a pragmatist magician. That it's like he likes it clean, he likes it neat. He doesn't need all the technologies. So I think that was an interesting sort of foray into what I wanted to say, which was, and what Joshua obviously said, because Joshua asked a very pertinent question related to this whole story, which is not meandering or weaving. It really is all interrelated. Joshua asked him right at the end, like, how do you, I can't even remember exactly what it was, Joshua, I'm sorry, but it was very pertinent to the archetypes and to the sort of the planetary, how they shift, how different archetypes and different planetary bodies can actually move, like exactly like we talked about, but I've never really quite thought about it in that way. And that maybe the dynamism in the interaction is actually what is the most interesting. And then if you say the king's position actually changes, and that was really the crux or the axis of Josh's question, was like, if the king is the axis, then what does that mean? And that he also embodies archetypes that can change. It's kind of radical, to be honest. So I think so this is the way it's going to go tonight. I'm ceding the floor to the brothers, all my amazing co-hosts. I do really like you all, so just so you know. I feign annoyance, but it is what it is. I'm soft inside. I'm just a uwu dark self. can you say? So I'm going to cede the floor to them, and I'm not going to do any interstitial speaking, but I am going to keep my intro and my outro, because that is kind of setting the pace, the space, and the time. You know, Time King. So, Shawnee maxing. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's Shawnee and Neptune at the same time. You know, maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe it's a little Uranian. Who knows? Okay, so we're going to be dynamic. And so unless anyone has any specific questions for me, you guys don't even need me in the interstitial. Just use your hands and your own discernment, and you guys are good. So I trust you. I trust you, Nagas. So that's why we're going to do this. And I'm not worried at all, to be honest. And I did probably need shaken out of that klipa. So thank you, Joshua. Probably need to cede some control. It was hard. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, we were, it's kind of good. So let's do that. So with that being said, let us do room shout outs, because I think that's one of the favorites, and it also makes sense to do it right at the beginning. So I'll obviously do mini intros, probably not that funny ones. Maybe we'll see how it goes. Of my co-host for tonight, I want to specifically shout out Mr. Well, I call him Mr. Mr. T, but his name is really MT. Well, but I like his name to Mr. T. You know, I like a nickname. It's a sign of affection, really. So I want to shout him out. He's not here yet. Hopefully he'll come however long we go. I'm just going to let you guys decide the flow and the pace. You obviously have a broad category or episteme to work with, but whether you choose to stay within those confines or not, totally up to you. So, of course, we have my hero, Dark Soul Academia, Solar Exile. I'll let him plug when all the co-hosts goes. Thank you, Solar, for coming. Appreciate it. We have the Grey Lodge Director of Media Ecology, who runs our archive, for real, Joseph Reed. Thank you, Joseph. And he also has Maison Dia, of course. And I'll let him plug all his things. Solar actually has like other projects going on too, where like ritual shit and designing kind of magical workings, and trying to push me especially into thinking about magic in different ways. So we'll try and we'll let him plug that. Mike, of course, our brother, who I shouted out, specialist in markets. Thank you so much, Mike. Obviously, this is of relevance, especially for our topic tonight. So I think he'll be great on this, and no pressure. But yeah, I think it'll be really fun, and it's kind of different, right? I'm going outside my boundaries, right? It's like, I'm a little more conservative. It takes me a little more thing, but I think in the last few weeks, the way the timeline goes, we're just surfing. We're just surfing, even me. So we're just gonna see. This is just a speculative space, speculative, of course. So let's just see where it takes us. There's nothing wrong with discussion of ideas, right? Especially speculatively. Doesn't matter. Post right, post left, it's all bullshit. Just be post ideological. I don't know. It's interesting. Of course, my buddy Joshua, Frater Grandpa, this week at least. Thank you so much, Joshua, and thank you for joining me on that awesome episode. Yes, I did actually tear up, but I think I'm over that. No, but I find certain things to be profound lately, and when it is, it just hits right. And so I'm not really like that. I'm not like an emo person. I know it's going to sound funny coming from me. It tends to go for drama, but it's not. I don't really go for drama. I'm just a negative attention seek. That's just the truth. And so, all my behaviors, really, all my pathologies can be tied to that. Really, if you think about it, you'll be like, oh, that makes a lot more sense now. Okay, I accept. I'm acknowledging it, 100%. So, that's a show of vulnerability too, right? Okay. We have Ironwood, who is one of our lodge members. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate all the raccoon memes. I don't really get it, but maybe I'm not supposed to. Maybe it's like too meta for me. Avi, of course. We welcome the Dakinis, of course, because they are the Sangha, really. I mean, you're all the Sangha, so in a way, you're all the Dakinis. So that's kind of interesting, very, uh, very flux way to think about it. But in a way, it is true. So it's important to also like balance the polarities, right? And of course, Joseph, I remember not 2 polarities; there are really 8. I know this was a sort of a joke at my expense last night, but I set myself up for it, of course, because I'm a word cell. I like a self-referential joke. That's okay sometimes. Ha ha ha. But I was really talking about the 8 directions of the universe. Really, if you're following, like the 8-petaled lotus, the Mahasmashana has 8 petals, 8 different carnal grounds, 8 different names, 8 different arising forces. Speculative fucking Kalachakra. There we go. Of course, we have my buddy, Mamura. I'm so sorry, Matt. I forgot you. I didn't forget you, really. I skipped you. But maybe it's okay because you get this amazing kind of like makeup intro. So Matt has joined our. Oh, and Joshua, you also joined, didn't you? We've been kind of expanding every time we've been adding a lodge member to our on rejects. We've been doing like a Kabbalah series, and every time we've actually added a new lodge member. So it's been a really fun, interesting. I think we've all learned a lot, and I think that we might be. This is how I feel. I'm just gonna be honest. Sometimes I feel like the clarity is lesser. That might be my own practices being reduced or my own perceptions of the universe. But I think that sometimes when we like come together in those like smaller discussions just to sort of refresh our metaphysics, our kind of metaphysical ontology of reality, if you want to say that, I think it helps us because then we can kind of see, like, yes, we're thinking about this thing, we're thinking about this thing. Like when Matt talks about something, you can see he's talking about this kind of path working, he's talking about this kind of idea. And the same with Joshua. Like, where are we on the tree? Can we relate to each other? Like, that is one of the most important things, right? That's something that we often discuss. It's like bodhicitta framework. Well, if we're in different stuff, or if we're occupying different archetypes, even different planetary klopothic archetypes, we should still be able to relate to each other. And I admit that this is where I struggle the most. But, you know, we're working on it. Of course. So that's my intro from Matt, is he got a little practical Kabbalah just from, of course, his intro, because that's, Matt means a lot to me. And Matt also runs our fucking YouTube channel, Nagas, and it looks sick, as well as our new website, which looks fucking even sicker. It looks really sick. It's really dope. I'm so excited. Legit. And then with the Kino and everything. So thank you so much, Matt. Obviously, this all happened because of you. I was actually, before you started any of this, I was like, I'm going to ask Matt to help me with my link tree because I've let it get so out of control. But then now I'm like, fuck, I can never ask Matt for a favor ever again. So I'll ask someone else, Matt. But obviously, I'm incredibly grateful, incredibly honored, and thank you so much, obviously, because this is like, I don't know what it will be, but let's see, right? Let's just fucking go with it. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Everything. Let's just go with it. I'm letting all of you take your kind of agency and giving over some of the seating, some of the space, right? So it'll be up to you to where you also want to take it. Won't be so much on me, I guess, but obviously, you know, I'll still speak all the keywords. I'll still open all the gates for you. I'll try all the thresholds. We'll see what happens. So, Frater Singapura, Ram, of course, thank you so much for coming. This is a Hapaborean episode. I know I didn't really do a proper intro, but it is the Arc Redux. So I thought we would actually revisit it, and I thought it would be interesting if we actually revisit series once in a while. And I'm sorry that I made it on Friday, and I'm not apologizing for my, I'm not doing a Canadian apology where it's like kind of an empty, not even empty, but kind of a placate apology. I don't really do those, but I do sometimes, okay? So that is true too. But the reality is I know I should be more, you know, but sometimes the words don't come to me. Sometimes the title doesn't come to me. But to be honest, I kind of knew where I wanted to go all week, and discussing these kind of synthetic economic ideas in the chat so heavily, and trying to be flexible enough, trying to be where I'm willing to entertain it and maybe even willing to accept it as like a logic game, or even just maybe even real. As I said, I do believe it is Aeon of the Daughter. I really do believe that. Yeah, but it is also speculative. It's speculative for you. You don't have to believe it, but for me, it is real. So I do believe we are kind of speculative Kalachakrans. We are kind of speculative Gnostics. We are kind of in the axial tilt, right? Kind of moving together. So I think I like treating the spaces in that way, where they are real and magic is real. And also, Matt, that was the way to get to my heart. See, I told Matt, I said, both you and Joshua, you must conspire against me secretly, both together, because they hit me with like a double team. It's like Matt saying, "Oh, this is what the manifesto will be," saying all my things I say. Well, of course, that's, it's like it's my intellectual vanity, and I'm like, yes, let's do it. That's the manifesto. So, good job, Matt. Moonblade. Dharma bro, sick bro, appreciate you. The Steep King Land Shark. I know I should try and do that better for a good clip. The Steep King Land Shark. I can't even do it. But anyways, you're a great poster. You are the Steep King Land Shark. There, I got it. So thank you so much. Obviously, Logi and longtime mutual and fellow Hapaborian, as you all are. And yes, obviously, we are listening to Team Sash Bones. It's been my thing for a couple weeks, so we're just going with it, changing it up, And also, it is an homage to White Boy Aura, because this is something he often talks about in his lyrics. So I thought, well, since it is a running joke in the lodge, and we have several people who feel strongly about these things, yeah, like why not have some White Boy Aura music? That makes sense. So there we go. Mookie, thank you so much for coming. Crow Dakini from the Lodge. Um, you are the saint of the birds, and we appreciate that you come to us from time and space. Obviously, you make it fucking happen. Quantum Effect, thank you so much for coming. I'm not sure. We're new mutuals, I guess, but welcome. Thank you so much. This is Speculative plus Ultra Space. Magic is real. We come together on this crazy app called X in the 10 and the 11. So we try and to come together in bodhicitta. Keep the emptiness contained, the decoherence. We're all a bit decoherent as beings, but try and aim for something maybe more primordial or more true than not true. And I think that is one of the exceptionally difficult lessons of this week, just in the timeline. I'm not saying in my personal life or anything, but I think just in general on the timeline, it's been interesting to see the different narratives be so decoherent all at the same time. And this is something that Joseph mentioned last week. It's like you're going to see all these narratives be spoken all at the same time, but they're all as decoherent as each other. They're not even decoherent, actually, because I actually like decoherence. Obviously, Pink Ray, I still fuck with that. But the incoherence of the individual narratives, that is difficult. Because how do you discern through the smoke? Truly. Sometimes last year it felt so easy. It felt, we just like, the reality was just like presenting itself. It was like the next layer, the next layer, the next layer. But now it's all just flux. But maybe that is also a boon, sort of, to the meta-magician. Maybe we can take of it and make of it and do something fucking interesting. And as I've become fond of saying, maybe we can use it to fuck the archons. I don't know. Just a speculative idea. But I think relevant in 2025. So, with that being said, let us open the circle cast away into space all obstructing forces, all negative entities, all enemies, known and unknown, all offending spirits. We cast them out, O Mahum, in the perennial colors. May they forever run. So, that being said, circle's open. My introduction is complete. So I will let the co-hosts introduce themselves, plug whatever the fuck they want, and take the take the Friday Night Gnostic Mouse where they want to take it. Starting with Mr. Solar Exile. Solar, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thanks all for coming. I'm wearing the mask of Sleepy Exile today, but I'll do my best. Yeah, so I figure I'd just rather than plug anything, just kind of check in, see sort of what I'm doing magically, besides setting my wife's Pomeranians off, apparently. Yeah, so other than the kind of ritual schedule that I'm on now, I'm sort of doing a program that I don't really want to talk too much about, but it's kept me busy. I don't know. I'm ripping and running. I'm playing with some modeling clay to do some stuff out of the humorously titled Liber KKK by Sir Peter Carroll. So kind of taking one back to the original point of origin of chaos magic a little bit for some fun group working I'm doing, not taking it too seriously. Let's see. Other than that, I'm kind of wading into again with sigils as the kind of technique, exploring the ideas of using curse magic, not to fuck up someone's day so much as act as a sort of catalyst for transformation, both of the other, but then inherently, sort of inevitably of the self too. So kind of this dual-ended, yeah, the kind of transformative magic of connection, but using the sort of magical grammar of the curse and curse formulae to accomplish that, right? But not just like trying to get someone killed or raped by demons or whatever. So that's kind of an interesting paradigm that was suggested to me from someone interesting in a conversation. So yeah, I'm a busy guy, but that's kind of what I'm up to. Good to have you all here.
Okay, Dr. Joseph, go for it. You don't even have to wait for me. Just go ahead.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you, Solar, and all the co-hosts, Mike, and Joshua the Branch, and Matt. I'm super happy to be here, and once again, very, very grateful to have wandered into this space, and you are increasingly and more rapidly becoming very dear to my heart. And I must say to Jin especially, everyone loves her curmudgeon. Just it's like there's something super endearing about it, and thank you so much. You're really great. I'm Joseph at Frodo here on X. My I guess wheelhouse for the Grey Lodge is mainly media ecology, but that kind of encompasses many things. It's these, I'm taking some inventory of the psychic and social effects and consequences of all of our media, and our media is any basic human creation, from a word to a wheel to the smartphone that you're probably holding in your hands. In addition to that, I recently opened a company called La Maison Dieu. We are an art house. The link is in the pinned tweet in my profile. And we have a photo book, a sensual artifact called Sensazione. And I am told there are only single digits left to our first printing. So if you're interested, you should take a look or send it to someone you would like. And I do want to plug one thing. What I want to plug tonight, because I know this has come up in the group chat and probably especially to certain people, is I want to plug proper rest and good sleep hygiene. It's really important, especially these days. And what do I mean by that? I want to plug turning your phone off, like powered down, at least 30 minutes before sleeping. I recommend having that phone outside of your bedroom. I recommend not even like having the phone in your bedroom. And unplug the Wi-Fi at night. Just turn it off and really take care of yourselves and get good rest. Thank you very much, and I'm really happy to be here. And super, I care about you guys a lot, so thank you so much. A lot.
Okay, Mike, you don't have to wait. Go for it.
Okay, I don't know what's next. So great to be here. Of course, as always, I love being able to contribute to the conversation. Most of you guys know me already. Kind of what I do. It's a little bit secretive. I'm doing stuff that has to do with speculative economies. I like learning about esoteric stuff, and I try to use this stuff practically. I do research on cycles and try to use that practically, astrology, and also art and just markets. I'm collecting art though. I'm not creating art. Um, so yeah, I have a lot to say on this topic. I have no idea what's gonna come out of my mouth, and I hope I don't say too much because I'm still working on stuff that I don't want to put public yet. So yeah, happy to be here.
Joshua, go for it, buddy. You're a co-host. You don't have to wait for me.
Hey guys, Sabat Shalom. We recorded a few episodes recently. We did a segment on Claymore, Jen and I. So at some point we'll have that out. And recently, the Kabbalah episode with Matt on the occult rejects. And then again, we did an episode, but it wasn't live, with Mr. Lamb. And I must say, I like Lamb. I'm an Aries, so I already knew I was going to like it. But it was such a fun time. I really appreciate being invited on there. So I encourage you guys to look for that as well. I'm going to get that book, by the way. I can't remember the title of it, but I'll need to look it up. But yeah, and you reminded me of maybe what I said to you, I think, was how Jupiter had moons, as many as 92, but like 4 main ones. And so that might have been what I said, I think. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, guys.
Okay, Matt, go for it, buddy.
Awesome. Let's see how this space is going to be. Very exciting for the changes. So I'm at Mora, Kabbalah, astrology, tarot, numerology, all the kind of weird stuff. But yeah, Kabbalah it is. So a lot of stuff to plug. First of all, the Grey Lodge website. Go for it. I posted here in the messages of the space. It's really nice. For sure, Jin, if you need help with anything, let me know as well. You mentioned the link 3 things. I'm super happy to do all of these. I was very excited to do the website of the Grey Lodge. That was really nice. Aside from that, yes, we have the spaces on occult rejects. We have podcasts on Threshold Saints. We have podcasts on the Grey Hunter Pagans. We have the Grey Lodge YouTube as well, which has been growing every week, has like one or other subscriber. That's very nice. Also, I've been trying to post all the past ones. So all Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, at least until we get to the weekly ones. What else? There's my website, Kabbalah.com. A lot of cool stuff there. It's been kind of there for a while. I have a lot of cool ideas to put, but I need some time to focus as well on other things. And yeah, I think this is pretty much it. There's also my YouTube. I'm trying to post every week, at least one video. And one thing interesting then maybe that I can say, since we are going to talk about economies today, can maybe start a conversation. So for starters, every week I take cards for myself, 3 cards, tarot cards. And this week, surprisingly or not, I had the King of Pentacles and the Four of Pentacles. So very fitting for the theme of today. And I wanted to make a question, actually, to start the convo here. First of all, what is economy and money for people here in the chat? So especially the co-hosts, obviously. I'm going to read here what's in the dictionary, and I'm going to say what I think it is as well, my perception of it. So economy can be either the state of a country or region in terms of the production and consumption of goods and services and the supply of money. That's one. Second is the careful management of available resources. Interesting. So it's very similar to the first one, at least. It's very similar to wealth, right? So when you're talking in terms of a place, its economy is the production, the consumption of goods and things. At least that's what it's in the dictionary, right? But when I think to myself, for example, am I wealthy? So how would I measure that personally? Myself, Matt, I try to not think only in terms of monies and good and like valuable things and so on, but also, or rather, I do think in valuable things, but not only material things. For example, health is wealth to me, because it doesn't matter if I have all the money in the world, but I'm stuck in a hospital bed. Really, it's literally not valuable at all, right? It's maybe valuable to keep me in the hospital bed, but that's pretty much it. Relationships also, if you don't have meaningful relationships to share experiences with, and then when I mean relationships, I mean in general, family, friends, more intimate, doesn't matter, and so on and so forth. So in this case, money would be really the driver of experiences, because we happen to be in a simulator here that, well, we require money to transfer information that says, look, I need your thing, and you want more my money than your thing, so let's trade this thing. So it's really all in our minds. Really, money is not a real thing. It's not gold, it's not the paper, fiat paper, is not whatever thing that you can physically have. It's this concept. Or even, because if you think, again, money between countries, one country will have a money that is quote unquote more valuable than another country's money, and so on and so forth. So it is really in our minds, and it's context dependent. So maybe if you are in a context where, let's say, suppose you are someone which so let's make a thought exercise. Suppose you go back like a few thousand years and you have a cell phone with you. Would it really be as valuable as it is today, like in the past? Well, not really, because you don't have internet, you don't have like a lot of other stuff, you cannot really charge it, and so on and so forth. So it really depends, again, also on where you are. So I made the example of going to the past, but you can maybe go to different regions on Earth nowadays, and different things will have different values. Now, a lot of interesting things we can go towards here. So maybe the question here that I wanted to start was this: what's economy? And maybe you can go into that. What do you think?
Okay, I'll start. Because when you first say the word economy, I was reminded about the etymology of economy from the Greek. Has to do with the home, with the like very core center of the household, the home. And so the second definition that you read, Matt, about like the resources and how we divide them and take care of them and steward the resources. This is the most resonant kind of like definition for economy for me. So when I think about economy, I'm also thinking about my available energy to do the things that I want to do the things that I need to do for the people that I care about, that may need my help, and what I want to project, how I want to project that resource of my energy out into the world. And like I'm finding it increasingly like stretched rather thin, like compared to, maybe like several lifetimes ago, but I'm just talking about maybe 20 years ago for myself, that I was able to do much more, or I felt like I was able to do much more, just like running around, but at the same time it felt like running, just spinning my wheels. And now as I look at life and I'm more discerning about where I want to put my energy, I also think that is kind of maybe a way, a pathless path that a speculative economy, if you will, of what we want to do. Do we want to keep like just making more stuff for the sake of like having more stuff, or chasing, even now it's just like more attention? It's not even stuff anymore. It's like how much more attention can you achieve on, you know, likes or views or subscriptions, things like that. So where can we like contain our own personal economy, and where, so that it can like build up in power, and then where can we allow it to flourish? Maybe we can be more discerning about where we put that. That's all I'm going to say for now. Thank you.
So I figured I'm still going to try to hold on to the hand raising thing, just so we can sort of have a mutually managed like little stack. You know, like if we end up not using it, I'll just ban it. I was just explaining kind of why I was keeping it up. Yeah, so I'm super glad you brought up the sort of root of economia, right? Because it reminds me of the I'm thinking of the book put out by Imperium Press, the Ancient City, and then the kind of the companion volume of Ancient Family. Basically, that gets to the idea of the hearth cult and the ancestor cult, with the hearth being, and the sacred fire being the sort of center of the Proto-Indo-European and a sort of Aryan home and family, as well as being like an essential, actual, like productive sort of economic site, right? And the idea is that like all the activity within the household and all the sort of energy that moved through the household was inherently sacred. Now, I'm not preaching any kind of like return to, you know, reconstructionist Proto-Indo-European religious practices, right? That's not my bag, right? But it does kind of frame things as you did, right? Of like, it ultimately reduces, or it transforms a question of economy to a question of meaning and value, right? So like, for instance, in my day job, I understand what I'm doing, my sort of like lifestyle and my adoption of how I have to live to accommodate the job that I work, as being essentially like part of an ascetic regimen, like training myself as essentially sort of this like warrior monk, right? And so all of my time, all of my energy is sort of economized, not necessarily in terms of like maximizing profit extraction, right? Something like that, like making as much money as possible. Although that's obviously like one component of it, because that increases my power and the ability to affect will. But it constantly keeps me sort of like focused and having to sort of reassert this sort of map of meaning that I've imposed on the world and my sort of own activity, right? And for me to be constantly sort of made aware and having to, like I said, like reassert how that meaning is sort of resonating with me or not, and things like that, right? Like I have my own idiosyncratic way of understanding my own sort of being, my own activity, that has to be nourished and fed. And if something isn't working with it, I have to interrogate why and, you know, address that appropriately. Anyway.
I would mention one thing, that how the standard they use for the modern day economy, something they call like what, the CPI, Consumer Price Index. And so they do look at the price of certain products as some way to try to put their finger on the pulse of, you know, the households across America, I guess. And so I find that to be an interesting element, because I didn't realize it related so much to the sphere of domesticity, as it were. And if a good wife can save you a lot of money, you know, because I know in Appalachia, it's part of the culture to be very conservative. So for me, conservative's never really been like a political word. Just living in Appalachia, you are conservative by nature, because people tend to, you know, conserve resources in various ways. And so I think that part of the culture, as it ties to money, is not only is it it's changing because it's digital now, and so there's not as much of an exchange of culture, or people interaction. You know, that element's kind of been lost, and especially enforced during the COVID pandemic, because now they're trying to get rid of cash altogether. So I think that will send a ripple throughout economy, as it were. And so when you use like the blockchain or central bank digital currencies or whatever it is that's on the horizon, it kind of is removing that control element of the economy that you exercise over your household. So I think things like castle doctrine and being the head of your household on tax returns and stuff like that, it's that because you're managing the economy of your household, right? So I never really made that connection until now. So I just wanted to kind of weave on that for a moment.
Yeah, Solar, I don't know if you had your hands up or if it's bugged on my side, but if you don't, then okay,
No, it's just bugged. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So just one thing that I wanted to say here while you guys were talking is it's very interesting that also not only the environment will say like how economy will play, because again, on some places, like let's say you are in the desert, certain things are going to be more valuable than if you were in the tropical like place and so on and so forth, right? But also the current aeon, because if you think about it, again, if you are in an aeon that the focus now is agriculture, then it's much more likely that the value of things will be placed upon, let's say, how many cattle you have, how many fields you have to plant stuff, and so on and so forth. But if the current aeon, the focus is on, waging war and spoiling resources, then having those things is not really that smart, because I mean, you're just gonna end up with things to carry around that can be spoiled anyway. So it's very different than nowadays. I think Joseph touched a little bit upon this, but more and more we are valuing the technology of things and the associations we have with other people. So yeah, sure, they can be in a way, for example, the attention we have, but that can another thing that can be is how much other people follow the story that you're trying to tell, right? So it's, again, if you have maybe you necessarily, like you as a person, you don't have the attention, but the story that you created and that you want to be pushed forward has the attention, because it's being played on movies and music and on politics, whatever it is. So it's a very interesting shift, because then again, from my point of view, we are in a air age, so it's all about it's not really something tangible. It's not really something that a country can measure on its GDP. And it's also not something that will probably stay along for a lot of time. Like let's say if you were counting cattle, right? It's going to be totally different. It can be one day something and another day it's already shifting. So it's interesting also how the time will shape how the economies play out. And very curious to see how more and more as this idea of AI is working for humans and so on, it's playing out, how things are going to shift. I don't believe in the idea that people are there's not going to be work to do and so on. There's always either work to do, or they always find ways to get rid of people. So there's always something that happens. They for sure won't let people let's say, quote unquote, use the resources, especially considering that when I mean they, I mean people managing the simulator, they are very economic in this case. So if they feel like there's a lot of things not being used, they know how to deal with that. But yeah, I see Mike didn't speak yet and has his hand, so if you want to go ahead.
Mike, can you go?
Yeah, I don't know if you have your microphone set up. I saw that you unmuted, but I don't think we can hear you.
He said his internet might drop or something.
Okay, maybe if someone.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, Joseph, and you can try to reconnect or whatever.
Okay, all right. I want to kind of riff on something. I don't know where I'm going with this, but something that Joshua said, and also Matt said, is this being conservative, which is great. Of course we want to conserve resources, but I'm wondering, what is so much of life is lived at the survival level. You know what I mean? Like it just surviving, like people just like barely getting by. And it's like there's all of this stuff tied in with worthiness and unworthiness and deservedness and privilege and undeservedness and things like that. I'm going to come out here and like give you guys my most like lefty progressive like idea that I had. Like I fundamentally do not believe that anything related to first chakra should be like paid for. Like as we have come into this existence, like we are a being that needs to eat, that needs clean water, that needs clean air, that needs some kind of shelter. And I don't think that like someone more powerful should hold those things over someone and deny anyone those things to leave. So like, so there has to be, I always see like, okay, I'm also coming out here. I used to work in strategic messaging also for like progressive organizations, but I had to get out of there because they're crazy. But like this idea of like the safety net, like a net has holes. Like you can fall through a hole in a net and the net can rip. No. You need a proper foundation. We need a proper foundation to like come out of survival mode that has been going on like forever. And then I think only then there can be some kind of like flourishing. Now, who are the people that are like running the simulator? I want to know who these people are, because like, are they someone I can write a strongly worded email to, or like something else? You know what I mean? So like they have to, those people that are running the simulator, they have starvation anxiety. They have starvation anxiety because they're lording it over everyone else. So hunger ghosts, archons, whatever. So there's this, wait, I had my notes. So it was the conservative, getting out of survival. And oh yeah, it's kind of tied into this. What Matt was saying, right now we're at like a point where almost every basic interaction that you can have in your day is monetized in some way. And I feel like they will find a way to monetize the things that are not yet monetized. Which like how many steps you're allowed to take in a day or something ridiculous like that. So yeah, those are the things that came through my mind while you're speaking. Thank you very much.
Okay, my thing here is, I don't know if it's bugged, but basically almost everyone had the hands. I don't know if Mike wants to try again, if he's here. Or if Josh has his hands up, or Solar. Otherwise, I can go as well.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead? Then
Okay.
I'll go after.
Okay. Just because for me, everyone has the hands up. Sometimes it's
yeah,
buggy
dude, it's buggy as shit. That for honestly is why I would revert to the Jin Fuhrer principle. Is simply that we need one person whose interface is the interface that actually like controls the order of the stack, if nothing else, right? Because like we all have like variously bugged out like UIs like with respect to each other's hands and shit. We can see how it works. This is the chaos mode space, but. Anyway, but that's hey, we're doing an experiment. But go ahead, man.
Exactly. Let's try it out. Okay, so one thing I wanted to riff on that Joseph just talked about, this idea of the everything related to root chakra and so on. So there's a guy, I don't know if anybody heard of him before, or there's probably someone which has done like similar things, but that's the guy that I know of from a friend. His name is Daniel Suelo or something like that. I don't know if he has like a book or whatever, or it's just like a concept that he calls living without money, right? And if you think about it, he's basically his whole that he lives without money. That's the whole gist of the thing. Like he goes around, he doesn't has a fixed place to live, or like even necessarily a fixed place to get food or anything. He just wanders around and does the things. But if you think about it, that's how any, let's say, animal lives, or how we used to live before we had any organization whatsoever. So you go around, if you find some berries or if you find something you can hunt, good, you have food. If you find shelter in a cave or, I don't know, in a tree, whatever, good, you have shelter. and so on and so forth. So the thing is, obviously, it is kind of a golden cage, right? Because after you are in the system, you don't want to get out of it, you know? Like, it would be very hypocrite, let's say, of me to say, oh, you know, I want to live without money. Yeah, you know, do I really? I don't know. But it is an interesting idea to the sense of when it comes to surviving, you know, a lot of people put in their minds, because, again, sometimes it's just the way it is, that their consciousness is on that, let's call it frequency on, or that level, and it is what it is. I'm not saying they're wrong, but they're gonna understand that the only way that they can survive is through the system, you know, and very likely also they're gonna have a lot of other programming that is gonna be like making it even harder for them to play by the rules of the system. So, for example, they'll think, oh, you know, I can only survive and so on and so on if I have this and that and so on. Like if I have a car and if I have this and so on, like they're going to put a lot of things that they should do because they think is what they should do, because whatever, maybe the parents told this, or the culture they live told them this, and so on and so forth. And again, and also, but at the same time, you know, maybe their religious background will say something like, oh, money is evil, and, you know, or you shouldn't necessarily strive to be rich and whatever. So at the same time, you need the things, but it's not good to have the things. And so you get stuck in this kind of whole duality thing. So imagine also if your consciousness was, before being, let's say, human, was in this state of kind of animal-like, where you just run around and do everything, and then you get kind of thrown into, you know, now you got to deal with actually the stuff that you get, you know. It's going to be obviously much harder, but in a way, it is, again, easier always to solve things in the mind if you can do it to yourself, right? And I'm not talking here global or like even local, regional economics, but like if you're by yourself, think about it. Everything always is provided. If I also try to compare with animals, like the birds, they don't think, oh, you know, I should plan ahead and, you know, oh, what's the metrics to get today's food and so on. Like, they just go fly and eat food. That's it. There's really no secret to getting things. And if you're just talking about surviving, that's it. Now, obviously, again, as humans, we want to experience other things that maybe, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's going to be harder, especially considering the person's consciousness, to have some things. But again, think, if you really, let's say, you want to experience riding a fast car, like a supercar and so on, do you really need to buy one? Not necessarily. You could, for example, just rent one. But even renting one is expensive. But what if you got gifted one? What if you had the chance to just ride one for a day? What if there's like so many ways that experience can be played, and fix yourself on one way specifically, thinking, let's say, oh, I need to have the car. Sure, that, I'm not saying again that that's going to be impossible. It's just going to say, it's just going to be extremely hard, you know, depending on which level you are in life. So the point here is, from that idea, you know, if you're just starting out or if you're just surviving bit by bit, try to think to yourself, well, maybe you have a programming that is kind of keeping you there, and it would be easier if you tried to find that and solve it to yourself first, and then, you know, that idea of putting the mask first on yourself, and then you can start helping others and whatever. It's always true in this case. So another thing to finish up here, to me, it still shows that Solar has the hand, so I'm not sure. But anyways, I think Mike wants to speak as well, so I'm going to be brief. So think about it. If nowadays, more and more, the technology is the thing that is being valuable. And when I mean technology, I don't mean software, I mean hardware. Because think about it, software is easy. It's like, it can be done, it can be reproduced. It's not even real, you know, it's just, you know, pixels on the screen. So the real value, and it has a cap, because the software can only run as far as the hardware lets it. So think, we have ways to, you know, get better and better with hardware, but we also have a limitation in the sense of it gets harder and harder to produce better hardware. Okay, the thing, don't we have a hardware that has basically almost infinite energy, electric potential, and so on and so on, that and also has information, and that it has connections? Well, more and more we have already some things running around there, but more and more, if you pay attention, the hardware is going to be the body, because again, the technology is ourselves, is in part the body as well. So more and more we are going to try and they're going to try and like link both the things that we already have, like internet and so on and so on, with our bodies. And then, well, when that happens, guess what? Now you have amazingly powerful hardware, but who's controlling it? You know, already, if you think about it, we work like that in the sense like most of our body is already quote unquote something that isn't us, like it's bacteria, it's molecules and whatever, but it's still kind of us. It's still, we agreed, you know. when you were a little baby, you were still those cells. But when there's something external to also run the software together, I think that's going to be quite interesting. Let's say, I'm not going to say it's going to be cool and so on, but it's going to be quite interesting when that happens, because it's for sure happening at some point. But yeah, Mike, if you want to try it once again.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay,
Good job.
great, awesome. I hope that it stays on for me speaking right now. I don't know what's going on, but so there's so much that was said, and I don't even know where to start. But trying to go off of some of the things that I heard and talking about cycles and the aeon and saculum and like value. So we're at a weird time in the cycle where things are expensive, and especially if you're in certain areas. So I was living in New York recently, and it's outrageously expensive in New York. It's not livable at all. And the way that it works right now for a lot of people is they get forced into a job or multiple jobs, especially if you're in New York, where you have no time to do anything else, and then you're just stuck there forever, and you have no time to ever pursue any other type of passionate project, and it's just so limiting, and it's just awful, and it doesn't really give you any other avenue in life. And Joseph, like I know you were talking about some of these things with just money, and even on like greater cycles, we just live in such a material focused world, um, and there really aren't a lot of uh, foundational services to really give people a chance. It's kind of, especially in America, it's kind of like a free for all, and that has its pros and cons. Um, but I've lived in a few different states, and like in Colorado, they had like some really good social services, and I was at school at the time, and it was like really helpful for me, and that was great. And then, but where I'm from originally in Pennsylvania, they give nothing, so it's like a drastic difference, and I've experienced how that affects things in my life, where it's just if you need help, like it's not there in certain places, and it's motivating, and it has a benefit because it allows you to think more creatively and to like to work towards things. But it's I think we could do a lot better than how it is right now. And tying this to crypto and stuff, so crypto creates a new way of value, of like perceiving value in transacting value. And it started out really interesting with Bitcoin, and then it got kind of crazy with meme coins, and it was really getting people to question like, what is value? Like, why does this meme coin have value? What and even with art as well, and digital art, and it's creating these new economies, and it is a cool place to be right now, because it's allowing people more freedom to create something in this global economy, and try to like rewrite the script a little bit, especially um, on a more global scale, rather than being like stuck in like some type of like local system where you're forced to do whatever you can to get by, and your options are limited. That's all I'll say for now. I'll type back to you, Solar.
Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, I'll be brief on this because I wanted to get right to the sort of first chakra needs comment that Joseph made, right? But this isn't particularly like magical or esoteric, so it's not exactly what people are here for, so I'll keep it real short. I just want to point out, right, that like 100 years ago, like there was widespread confidence across not even just the like Western world, but even obviously in like Soviet Union as well, right? That a managerial state was going to, in some form, right? So whether we're talking about like FDR's like revolution, right, with the New Deal, whether we're talking about the Third Reich and other sort of revolutionary governments that came into power in continental Europe throughout the 20s onward, or of course the Soviet Union, like kicking this off, right? There was confidence that we were going to be able to sort of manage and optimize and marshal and allocate resources in such a way that was going to be able to more efficiently meet the needs of more people than any way we had previously attempted to do so before through private industry, enterprise, things like that, right? There isn't any confidence in that idea anymore. Not just because the Soviet Union collapsed, but just in general, right? Like you would not be able to sell people on the idea of a like city managed grocery store chain at this point, right? There's just no sort of will and confidence for that. I think we're also trending away, or we're trending towards an era of kind of decentralized state power, like a sort of erosion of Westphalian and post-Westphalian state power. We've talked about this in other spaces. However, I do think there's like a silver lining to this. Actually, there's a tremendous like upside to this, right? Is it like people aren't looking to these like mega states to provide needs, or there's no confidence in the ability of them to do so, and there hasn't been since November 9th, 1989, right? At the latest. However, and like every Western European nation is like hurtling towards a sovereign debt crisis and all this shit, right? Okay, but at the same time, we're also like living through this kind of general like social like Western collapse of meaning, right? So okay, people need meaning, people need orienting myths, people need sort of reorientation towards something bigger than themselves, right? People are hungry, they're starving for that, they're looking for that, while at the same time are big governments which don't provide those myths, which don't anchor any kind of like transcendental super personal meaning anymore for people, right? These things are just like these weird kind of badly functioning economic coordinating entities and legal entities, right? So we need something new on both ends, right? There are going to be new economic opportunities that emerge as like state power erodes, local, regional, corporate power ascends to fill that void, while at the same time, like new structures will emerge that will be able to provide like essentially meaning and purpose to people's lives in a way that state myths, narratives, etc., cannot now. And so I see tremendous potential there for those things to happen in conjunction with one another, right? For new sort of formations to emerge that both better materially meet the needs of more people, while at the same time like orienting them towards something greater, something transcendent, perhaps something even sort of traditional, initiatic, etc. Right? So I try to focus on the positives. And I'm just trying to connect this to maybe ideas we've brought up in other spaces before.
Very nice. So Stoller brings up something which is interesting, which is if we're talking about economics, we cannot not talk about taxes, right? So the government and so on, and it's rolled on. Again, if we talk economics in the sense of, or economies, in the sense of managing resources, and for sure you have someone always taking part of your resource for whatever reason. Some will say, oh, it's for this cause or that cause, or to manage this, to manage that, doesn't matter. It's involuntary. Even in Portuguese, it's very funny because it's literally called imposto, which is like put by force, something maybe in English like imposed, I guess. So it literally means imposed. Otherwise, it would be like voluntary or something, So it is something that has to enter also in the math, because when that's a problem, for example, Italy, that happens a lot, also in Brazil, where because of the way taxes work, having cash is not really smart, because if you have cash, it means it can be taxed. Or if you have, like, let's say, if you do things by the book, which in theory would give you more credits, you have like some way to prove that you have money coming in, for example, you would also pay more tax. So sometimes, like especially in Italy, they prefer to do things off the book. They call here the like black money, because then they can pay less taxes. Because, for example, here in the economy here of Italy, there is enough incentives to, well, so first of all, context. A lot of people here are well off in the sense of their families have multiple houses, sometimes businesses, and so on and so forth. So it's not really like they are, starving or something. They have where to fall asleep, let's say, a worst case scenario. So also there's the culture of not necessarily liking to work that much, and you work because you've got to work. Otherwise, you would be in the beach, you would be in the mountains, you would be doing something else. That's like that's how they think. And so there's not really that much of an incentive already culturally to go after such highs, to have many amounts of money, and so on and so on. But also you couple that with the difficulty of making such money, because again, if you try raising your salary, meaning more cash coming in, you're gonna pay equivalent taxes, so it's gonna zero out. Same if business, and you try, growing it out, and so on. But that being said, how does then someone which is quote unquote what we would call like rich and whatever, wealthy, play the game then? Like how do you even get there? Well, again, you don't get there with the cash, you get there with the debt. So you see how it's like an illusion built upon an illusion. And now the debt is like you have this even more fictionary money that is supposedly going to come to you, and so on and so on. That with that, you can get other things. So in the same way, like as you would have, let's say, a stock somewhere, and you can, use that as a collateral to get some debt with the bank, and so on and so on, because that is not going to get taxed. Or even better, the government, for example, in Italy again, they'll say things, they'll make measures to help those guys come. And when I mean those guys, I mean people that can pay 200K a year, and it's like nothing. Like there's a special tax bracket or whatever that you can, like for 15 years or something, you can pay just a fixed fee of 2000K a year. So it doesn't matter if you have like 10 million, 100 million, a billion, doesn't matter. You're going to pay the same flat fee. So again, you can start to see how when people, especially when people talk, gotta tax the rich in this one, do you really like think the guys at the top are gonna do this, or they're gonna just find a way to get the most out of and let the big guys make more influence? Again, I'm not gonna get political here, but the idea, what I'm trying to say is the economy itself starts to really change in a way that it's not really necessarily about the real things, quote unquote, real things anymore. Like I said before, maybe it was about like how many cattle you had, or like how many fruits and whatever. But it starts to be this whole like play of relationships. And another thing also that I think Solar was talking about, the reason why people would buy things. So think to yourself, why do you buy anything? From a bottle of water in the supermarket to, I think, sorry, Mike was saying, was talking about this also. So from a bottle of water, when you buy one, specific one, to, buying an album from a band you like, from buying a car, from buying anything, think to yourself, you are really not buying the thing in itself, but you're buying the story that you're getting from it. So, for example, if you buy a specific bottle of water, you're not buying the water. Well, for starters, water is water in theory, right? Like, why would it change between brands of water? In theory, there obviously is changes, like there's mineral changes and whatever. It's light, but more importantly, it's gonna be the whole brand out of the thing, and like how it's packaged and where it's like in which market. Because think about it, if you only go to a specific supermarket chain, you can only find the brands that are in that chain. You can never find brands that are not there, or depending, where you go to fetch water and so on. So all of those things get thrown in there. So when people would, see guys buying NFTs for $1 million and so on, and think, oh, why the heck the guy would buy this? Well, many reasons. Maybe the story is that the guy wants to have the cool thing. Maybe the story is that the guy sees as a tax write-off or as a way to hide money. It doesn't matter. it's always a story. And even when you try to deeply rationalize about it and think, there's a, let's say, oh, I'm buying water because I'm thirsty. Are you really? Just think to yourself next time, you're gonna buy something. Before you buy it, try and make that that step of thinking to yourself, why am I buying this specific thing right now? It's gonna be very interesting.
Okay, I'll branch off of. Oh wait, who's up? Is it me? Or...
No, I was going to say Mike should go. Yeah.
So I want to branch off of Matt's idea of this ideas or currency subject, because that is something that was pretty revolutionary to me not that long ago, like half a decade ago now. And so I knew about cryptocurrency since pretty early, but I wasn't actually doing anything with it, Bitcoin, and I didn't know that much about it. But when I found out about Ethereum and everything that could be built on Ethereum with decentralized finance and NFTs and crypto art and everything, that was what really blew my mind. It was like really awesome, because you could start. It just answered so many questions as well. As someone who played a lot of video games like throughout their life, suddenly it made so much sense for assets in video games, which are now tokenized. And I played games like Hearthstone, for instance, which is a card game, and you don't actually own the cards. Um, you can't, and you over the years you amass like this collection of like these digital assets, and you can't do anything with it. There's a few cases like Counter-Strike, I guess, where there's actually a market for these different digital assets, but for many games there isn't that, and even if there is, it's centralized. So with what we have right now with like these new technologies emerging in crypto and NFTs and everything, you just have everything is becoming valued, and it's in a giant decentralized market that nobody has control over. So it's not just like JPEGs or meme coins. It's also like contracts and anything like writings. I've actually minted writings, and I think writings will. I think it's kind of early for that, but I think there's a market for anything, and it's cool. And it is also great because it allows you to. I think people tend to demonize the role of money in things, but it plays such a crucial role in developing your talents. So, for instance, I've seen a lot of artists who create digital art, or maybe weren't specializing in digital art before either the innovation of NFTs or before they got into them. And after they were able to start minting their works and seeing the feedback and seeing like the value and playing around with like the like mechanics of like different editions and everything, you see their works, their talent, like it just it goes like crazy, and it motivates them, and they get instant feedback on the things that they're creating. So money. And now when you have everything that you can enter like accessibly into a giant decentralized market, anything like any type of like creative asset or idea, like it just changes the game, and it like creates crazy progress for all of these different things. That's all I'll say for now. Solar, you can take it from there.
Yeah, no, so it's cool. I'm glad we're sort of going down the crypto path a little bit, because it ultimately connects to something Joshua brought up with the sort of self-reliance and inherent conservatism of Appalachian culture. For me, this very neatly abuts an idea both that I've cribbed from Ernst Jünger, but then also from some of the Taoist, more philosophy than the technical, like magical stuff that I'm engaged with, which is this idea of the anarch, right? Which it's neither master or slave. It's sort of yeoman freeholder, but the idea is to move sort of within society with being a part of it only as a sort of like willed participant, reducing your sort of attack surface, or reducing your vulnerabilities, reducing your dependency on outside systems, both materially but also informationally, psychologically, magically, etc., to a bare minimum, such that you can conserve and more sort of, again, willfully direct energy sort of from within and keeping that sort of circulating within, right? So you're not necessarily always rebelling against every system that's imposed upon you. You acknowledge it as an extant fact of the moment, and move skillfully with it, right? Or not, or it kind of you perform this kind of like instantaneous momentary negotiation with these larger structures. And so to me, I see crypto and basically the possibility for unregulatable markets, not just unregulated as of now, but theoretically unstoppably like unregulatable markets, as being a tremendous boon for someone who wants to live like this as much as possible. I do think that like there are current sort of like the crypto infrastructure that we have now, by and large, is tuned to the degree of connectivity that we have in today's world, right? And we could get into severe trouble if we nuke some we cut some undersea cables, blow up some data centers and things like that. Like the current infrastructure could get very fragmented very quickly. And I think, like, again, more decentralized like network sort of like mesh structures would have to sort of, replace a lot of that just like bare bones infrastructure to maintain like enough connectivity to have like a market that can clear, right? But still, like there's tremendous potential here in actually living out some of these ideas. And I just wanted to, again, not just connect that to what Joshua brought up earlier, but also this idea of sort of energy flow, both in the kind of like exoteric obvious sense of like material resources and attention and things like that, but also pointing out that there isn't really like that much of a significant distinction between those things and the resources of psyche, mental energy, attentional energy, and ultimately like magical potency. Like we're talking about a sort of like spectrum of things which are not, at the end of the day, like particularly distinct from one another. They're all sort of subject to the same mechanics, if you will.
Solar, that was amazing. Okay, I want to I have some questions written down from the first time that Solar spoke, all the way to this time. Okay, what is value? I think that is a super important thing. What is value? In regards to like the systems that are imposed upon us, from Matt says, will we lose interest in imposing our power upon someone else? This is. I think we've talked about this before. Will that happen? Will we lose interest? Or is there always going to be some kind of someone who wants to impose a system on any kind of naturally occurring thing that's happened? I don't know, because maybe the frustration, the rubbing up against each other of those two things, the interplay, the interface, is what causes growth and ingenuity or something like that. Okay, what is work? What is work? We all have talents that we like, and naturally things that we are inclined to do, and we quote unquote go to work, which is usually something that we don't necessarily want to do. So I always had this kind of fantasy of some sort of great rearrangement into where everyone kind of actually, I should be doing that job that you're doing. You should be doing this job over here, and things like that. So then you think what is a job? A job is also something it's not your work. Maybe your work is something that comes more from, the energy flow inside of you, right? Okay, so that brings me back to kind of Solar's last point, is that what is money? And I think we've talked about this before, or at least have mentioned it. Money is just an altering of the unceasing energy flow of your own resource. So is there a way that we can honor this and make it work for us without having the, I don't know, kind of this dominator? Maybe this is what it is. The dominator method of getting things done, quote unquote, for the good of the economy, things like that. Can we let go of the domination? Can we let go of wanting to outer the power over somebody else? And
I don't know. That's just a question that I'm fascinated with, and I don't know where we can go. And the last thing I want to talk about is like the cryptocurrency, the hidden ground of cryptocurrency, which you also brought up, Solar, as like, an undersea cable can get cut, and then like who knows what happens there. Like, what is the hidden ground of cryptocurrency? Well, obviously you need electricity. Well, where's the electricity going to come from? And so there's all these other things that go with cryptocurrency. And I honestly do not know the first thing about it. I'm really kind of like a dilettante about that as well. So those are things that I always want to look at too. What is the hidden ground of like this amazing thing that it seems to be make everything more convenient? I believe it was Mike and then Matt, but you guys can figure it out. Thank you.
Okay, Joseph, that was really interesting. I want to comment on a lot of things that you were saying. So, just asking these questions of what is value, what is work, what is like your job. Um, they are definitely distinct. And when you're saying what is work, it sounds like it's in my mind. You're talking about the sixth house, and then it sounds like you're just talking about the different houses of the earth element. So the sixth house, the second house of value, and then you have the 10th house of career, which is something that's distinct from work. And work, we do work, and I think something else that you were talking about, but maybe not saying directly, is I think we have these inner drives and passions, and it may not align with our work. So we're doing work, but it's what is the work that's like taking us closer to the inner passion that we have, and not just like the financial incentive. Um, and I think it is hard in this world because money is such a limiting. It can be such a limiting object where you're forced into these avenues to work. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily have a career, or a career that is in line with their highest good. It can often be something that through the avenues of life they've been able to it's been able to sustain them. But and I've met so many people where I've talked to them, and they tell me about their passions. They're like, oh yeah, if I could go back in time, I would probably do that. But nowadays I just learn it for fun. It's like, I feel like that's kind of a weird thing to say to me, because if you have something that you're passionate about, how can you ignore that? And I I understand like money is an important, you need money to live, and sometimes you have to sacrifice, and it's not easy for people to do that. But I I think you should always, I don't know, just from my own inner, the way I work, I would, I couldn't go about, it would just feel like giving up, and I wouldn't want to give up, right? And that's what it sounds like to me. Um, and when you're talking about crypto stuff and the foundation of it, I guess electricity would be, and they are, each has its own mechanism of writing, of keeping the blockchain secure, and they can be attacked by 51% attacks, at which point they can be compromised, and then like big transactions can be made. uh, but in terms of what is crypto electricity, I mean, it has to be, you have everybody securing, well, nowadays it's more proof of stake, where people are just putting their money and locking it up and being a node on the network. So it's still the security is kept by individual people. In It would be impossible, as long as like the technology was is sound, it would be impossible for them to be taken down. And there's a lot of problems with certain cryptocurrencies right now, even Bitcoin. So I think Bitcoin actually could be taken down. But if technically speaking, like theoretically, if the technology, or if the structure of the crypto is sound, then it would not be possible for it to be taken down. Whoever's next, I think it's Solar.
No, I
think
think
it's
Matt is
cool.
next, and then
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
all right, yeah, go for it.
So very interesting, very, very, very interesting. I have a lot of notes here. I'll try to not take too much time. So one thing, when Mike was talking about this idea of trading things in games, and that sometimes there's no value, right? Like you just have the thing on the game and that's it. Where on some games you even have a little bit of it, like on Counter-Strike. Well, also linking to what Solar was talking about, unregulated markets. There is such a thing called real money trading, which is basically that you have unregulated markets of games. So then you have like literally farms of people get items and so on, let's say World of Warcraft or Path of Exile, to then sell them in real life. Because again, when you're buying something, what is it that you're buying? A guy wants to be the top dog in a game, but he doesn't have time to play the game. So he pays someone else to get the items on the game so he can tell himself, oh, I'm the top dog in the game, or he just wants to, exercise his, like make use of the best items and whatever. He doesn't have time. So again, this is something that kind of already existed. And for some time, it kind of fed people, let's say, in the sense that people were kind of using this as means to get money because you were getting, let's say, dollars, and in their country, dollars were super worth, so it made sense to them economically. So that's very interesting. Another thing that we were talking about as well. So again, what is the money? So one of the arcanas, the 19th to be more exact, the sun, there's one of the phrases of it, which is called one of the mantras, which we say, transform the philosophical gold into material gold and vice versa. Material gold would be the thing that you can use to buy things in the material world. And philosophical gold, the thing that you can use to quote unquote buy things in the philosophical one, in the spiritual world. So that is, for example, knowledge, that is access to higher things. So if you just have money for the sake of money, for the sake of material things, sure, you can have it as much as you want. It's going to be super cool and so on. But trust me, if you didn't go through something like this yet, eventually you will, and you're going to see that it is not, quote unquote, enough. It doesn't amass to more than the physical experiences that you're going to have. And then you're going to be eager for more. And that more can be the philosophical gold, can be the knowledge. I'm saying knowledge here, and the people that understand Kabbalah will see what I mean, but it can be more than that, higher than that. But that's at least the entry point there. Another very interesting thing as well that Joseph was asking about job, work, and so on, labor. If you want to ask myself, I have the understanding that a job, a labor, is basically slavery. It's basically doing someone else's, let's say, job. Really, is doing someone else's experience, right? I'm not saying, oh, because it is slavery, therefore nobody should also. It's just, it is what it is, Even at least nowadays we get something out of it, But it still is, in a way, if you also get in the position of being an employer, so putting people to work, you're gonna see how it is kind of the lines, it's kind of blur where it stops being, oh, I'm helping something and so on, I'm helping someone to do something and so on and so on, and where it gets to be, I'm just quote unquote taking advantage. I'm not trying to be libtard or whatever, but it is what it is. Because when you think about it, a lot of the things that we work for, especially nowadays, are again just as fake as the money that we get from doing the thing. A lot of office jobs, a lot of things, unless you're planting something and so on, it's really what the even fuck are you doing? And I say that because I also work an office job, so I know it from the inside. A lot of the times, and that can be also taxing on the I'm gonna call here the soul, okay? Because you think to yourself, what the fuck am I, using my time to do this thing, whereas I could use it to do something else. But sometimes the sacrifice is worth it, depending on what you want to do and so on. If you understand that it's an illusion, then you can play your part. Like Solar was saying, you can be in the system there, the bare minimum that you need. So also another thing that Joseph was talking about, the value, right? So when you said value, a lot of things came to mind. First thing that came to mind was when we were talking about Kabbalah, numerology and so on, we have the value, in this case, the numeric value of things. So when you have the name of someone, you have the value of each of the letters, the value of the sum of the letters. You have the value of the birth date, and so on and so forth. You have the value of each of the paths. So here we are not necessarily talking about the same value, but it kind of is as well. So for example, to me, maybe something is going to be valuable because it gives me the exact, we can say, effectiveness, or it's going to solve something, or it's going to give me, the necessary power to do something, and so on and so forth. But it really, again, comes down to my question: why are you buying something? What is, quote unquote, the value that you're getting out of it? Is it really the thing in itself, or there's something behind it? There's always something behind it. And one last point, and then I'll let sort of go, is a little bit of practical money management. Okay, so money is not a good. It's not a good. It's not a good thing to be putting orders. It likes, or it's better when you are putting orders into it. So try this little thing here. Next time you find something that you can physically, I think it's easier if it's physically, it doesn't have to be, but let's say you find like a nice, a pretty bill, or a nice like piece of ounce of gold, or silver, or whatever, or something that signifies to you money. Okay, again, something that you can put the emotion into it, get it, treat it, like clean it and so on as best as you can, and then create a relationship with it. It's going to be the interface to money. So that thing, let's say I have, for example, even the other day I discovered, I think it has copper on it. I didn't even know, I thought it was just plastic, but I think it has copper on it, which is like a little Bitcoin coin, like literal. And but it's like, quote unquote, it's worthless. Maybe it has, like, for the copper, it has something, but it's just, figurative. But I use that, for example, and treat that as the interface for money. And then every time you're with it, you're not going to treat it as in taking care of it. Again, a job is slavery. So you're gonna demand to that thing that it brings more of its siblings to you. You're gonna say, come on, bro, you're gonna need to work your ass off and bring as in many forms as you can. If it's in crypto, digital currency, if it's in fiat, if it's whatever, just find me more of your kind. This is your job, and you're gonna maybe amaze yourself with what happens. But it has to be, again, with the proper, emotion, imagination, everything, right? That we talk about, the reasoning and so on and so forth. But yeah, I think this is it.
Okay, I'm just gonna jump in real quick, and then I'm probably gonna bounce. Got to spend some time with the spouse as well. Yeah, so these comments were primarily for Bibliomancer, and he's no longer on the space, but fuck it, I'm gonna go for it anyway. Because I'm gonna say one thing that he might like, and then another thing that he's gonna really hate. So the first thing that he might like is that in terms of work value, alienation, and human activity, I do still think that the Economic and Philosophic Manuscripts of 1844 by Marx, it's sort of young Marx, at his most Hegelian, right before he had sort of made this complete and total break with Hegelian philosophy, is an incredibly cogent and accurate description of the alienation of human labor and activity, right? What he describes as sort of the natural state of free play I would orient in a slightly different direction, right? Because anarchists are also gonna love that type of a description of what non-alienated labor looks like, right? It's free human activity, right? But for Marx and for a general like leftist, like an anarchist, they're not going to orient that towards anything beyond just this kind of like free-willed expression of being, right? And of course, Hegel would go in a completely different direction with the dialectic of spirit. But I don't go in either of those directions. For me, I'm interested in labor activity, economic and otherwise, that allows me, just to speak kabbalistically, to climb the tree, right? So what does that look like? So I'm an American. So that means I'm inherently Luciferian. I'm inherently Promethean. And I also am drawn or keyed up by certain sort of myths and mythic images. One of the strongest of those is the myth of the sort of frontier homesteader, right? The totally self-reliant, this person who lives this kind of economically chaste and hardened and self-sufficient life, free from the impositions of broader society. Like he is his own god. He sort of lords over his own petty realm. Right. This is kind of the Jeffersonian dream as well. But I'm not 16 anymore. So I understand, and especially I like currently work in the agricultural sector, which is scaled up tremendously, right? I understand that that's not possible, right? Like homesteading is a thing you do for a YouTube channel. It is not a viable way to actually live your life for 99.9999% of people, right? So how can I combine these two things? But because I'm still American. I still am keyed to frontiersmen, cowboys, homesteads, and all of that stuff. I still have that urge to sort of break free from larger societal impositions. And also, how do I orient this labor towards a spiritually productive, and again, I'm saying productive in the non-economic sense, but something that takes me higher, that leads to transcendence, that leads to a refinement of self, of soul, of will, of awareness, right? How do I do this? Well, for me, and this is what Bibliomancer would absolutely hate. He's like, God, really? This is your fucking answer, faggot? I'm a big fan of communes. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Like, obviously, this is not a scalable solution, but I am no longer trying to fix the world and save the world or lead the global revolution. For me, I see an economically viable unit of people who have similar shared beliefs, ideas, goals, values, etc., scaled enough to where they can actually live a little bit more self-sustainably. They can sort of participate in their own sort of private economy to meet those first chakra needs, while collectively understanding their activity as aiming towards and facilitating a transformation and elevation of purification of consciousness, or spiritual, a spiritual pursuit, right? That is the answer for me personally into where I would like to kind of steer my life over the next like 30 years, right? Again, it's not a society-wide answer. I'm not trying to provide that anymore. Like, I am a political partisan, but that's kind of its own discrete part of my life. So yeah, if anyone wants to join my cult, send me a DM. We can maybe pool our resources on the blockchain and start looking at some property, maybe out in the mountains. It'd be great. Yeah, hit me up. Love to hear from you. All right, have a great night, guys. I'll finish listening to this as soon as I can. But yeah, take it easy.
Let's just say thanks, Brother Solar. That was quite good. I mean, it was more than quite good. It was very great, as always. And yeah, you did us all proud with that, I think. And I think I'm in a place where I can't really disagree with you. So I know I said I wouldn't speak interstitially, and I'm not rescinding that. But, before you drop, I just want to say appreciate you, Naga, and talk to you later.
Thanks. I'll listen to the Roundtable of Hands, and then I'll drop. I don't just want to do a drive-by. But yeah, thank you, guys. Love you.
I think it's Mike now.
Okay. I didn't see that coming. I didn't see the communism coming. But I think that's so interesting because it is touching on something about the way that society is organized right now. And I think there is a lot of value to that type of structure. And we talked about this a little bit last time with network states and what the evolution of government is going to look like. And I don't know what that's going to look like exactly, but I think it might maybe look something like that, where you have these types of organizations that are more with people that share closely values and belief systems, that congregate on the internet or somewhere else and then go off and create their own place and have some type of like strong social system. And I just speculating on what possible universes look like, I think it's possible to be in a universe or a society where money is solved to an extent. I think money plays a huge purpose. Like, it's very motivating. It's it creates a like sort of competition which allows people to organize in certain ways. It's efficient in a way to not have to like just raw communism is not efficient. It gets abused. But having some type of new type of communism, I don't even want to say communism, but some new type of way of organizing.
Kibbutzim, for this, let me say this before Solar leaves. I told him privately, I said the future is kibbutzim. I said it. It's so true. It's true, Solar. It is just the reality of the situation. Okay? Gershom Scholem was right. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, we're Hapaborian Kibbutzniks now. Yeah, welcome back, Biblium Answer. You missed the Mark's plug, but anyway, have a great night, guys. See ya.
Okay, so I'm still on. That was pretty much my point. But I do see something like that becoming very possible and honestly more attractive as time goes on, because what is actually going on in the world right now, there's a lot of problems, and we need something fundamentally different. And that sounds like with the technologies that we have, it's opening up the door for something like that to look more possible, and that's interesting. That's all I'll say on that.
Thank you, Mike. That was great, and thank you, Solar. I mean, everybody's coming out tonight. It's really great. Competition. You said, Mike. Yes, and I'm reminded of again the etymology of the word competition, which is to strive together, and it's like to strive together. Could be towards something. So again, it's like the letting go of the dominator mode of being, and I don't know, we could call it partnership. Again, you want to call it communism, you want to call it kibbutzim. Again, what I was saying, the words that we have feel a little husky, right? They feel a little empty. So it might be new words for a new aeon. I want to take a moment, actually, because I'm just to honor Jin in kind of being the axial for all of these interesting and fascinating people, because I'm just each week I'm really kind of amazed, and again, I don't know, it's competition, because I'm oh my god, I'm inspired, and so things come out for me, and I was working on this article which I can talk about at some other time, but I had the chance to work on that again this weekend. It had a lot of projects. So I mean, I want to really Jin's taste is impeccable in curating all these people. It's just kind of amazing. And the last thing I want to say right now, and it goes back to Matt, what he was saying. Oh no, I do want to say two things. I lived in Hawaii for a time when I did my first yoga teacher training in the glorious little window of time of Bush's second term. I don't know, but somehow that period of time, I made a lot of money. It was really kind of amazing how much money I made. But I also had an opportunity to live at a intentional community, air quotes, in Hawaii, and Jin knows the place I'm talking about because he's going to buy it, and that's where we're going to have the Gray Lodge, because I've felt that piece of land ever since I lived there in 2004 was I have to steward that area somehow, some way. It was real. It was totally real. That kind of intentional living. It was before I'm sorry, it was before smartphone, and it was just internet was only dial-up there, so it wasn't bombarded with kind of like this attentional economy of showing, look at me, let me LARP on my like homesteading life type of thing. It was actually happening. Like we were in the moment doing it, and we like just did, okay, we're going to do a spontaneous like production of Midsummer Night's Dream with absolutely no rehearsal whatsoever. And then, you know, we're going to do the landscaping, and then we're going to build the sweat lodge and blah, 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 blah. Like all of that stuff, it happened and it worked. Like I saw it, it was real. And it can happen, but maybe letting go of this, like playing the game. Good. This brings me back to what I wanted to say about what Matt was saying, you know, why we're playing this game, right? And Matt said, why do we buy things? And I made me think of the question, who is buying? Who is it that is buying that particular brand of water? Who is it that wants those Japanese salvaged jeans? Who is it that wants that latte from that one? You know, something like that. Who is it buying? That's all. Thank you.
I think it's you now, Joshua.
Yes, thanks. I was just going to comment that I felt like this was a very timely topic because we're moving into Virgo, which is an earth sign. And of course, she's depicted with the scales, you know. So that at that time, of course, you know, the money was grain, you know, like you said, cattle, lambs, that sort of thing. And see, a quality that's been kind of lost too is like you would give the best of those things too when you gave them to God. And then so we've kind of lost that element with the money because now you can't say, well, this is my best dollar, you know. which dollar is different from the others. So unless you're writing on it, I mean, you wouldn't know. And of course, I shared that comment down below about the tradition of your first dollar and people hanging it on the wall or whatever, and you know that kind of becomes like their that dollar's charged, you know, because it's like, well, no pun intended, because that one's the one that they are kind of attached to, you know. And so, you know, you a lot of times do see it framed on the wall. And so I think that there can be something kind of gained from that, just that feeling of like it probably being beside like their business license or whatever, you know, kind of thing. So what I wanted to ask Jen, however, was like about the Buddhist attitude toward money, maybe like, or is there that um, striving maybe to like, you know, walk the edge or, you know, kind of in the fringes, participate, but not, or is it like taboo to maybe bring it into temple spaces? Like, I was just curious about that kind of thing, but also speculating on like the concept of being able to mint money seems like a very kingly type thing. And so like the government doesn't well tolerate uh, when people try to do stuff like that. So I think that's one reason why crypto's kind of been resisted in a sense. But anyway, I'm finished. Thank you.
I'm gonna be very quick, and then I think Jin can lead into answering Joshua. That's okay. So, man, Joseph, really, really interesting question. I was gonna lead with some other. I'm gonna try and tackle that first. Who was buying, right? Who was buying? So, when we get back into the value question in programming or in math, we can assign the value of things by using an equal sign. So for example, you can say A is equal to 10. So therefore, 10 in this context is equal to 8 and vice versa. So you create like a mirror, okay? So if you're saying that I'm buying something because of its value, wouldn't it be the case that you are seeing yourself in the thing? Therefore, you think, oh, that thing is for me. Yes, it is you. You're literally, like, especially nowadays with, let's say, phones. Like, phones are literally us for most people. You cannot go out with it. If you go out, it feels weird. You know, if you don't have it on you all the time, it's like weird, because again, it became part of you. And it's very interesting that also every now and then, every few hours, you, the quote unquote you in charge, changes. So it could be that the one now wants to buy the Japanese jeans, but then, you know, you wait for a while and then you buy, and then the you from 2 hours thinks to yourself, why the heck did I buy those? Because they think slightly different, you know. And that works. That's what I would call a chakra unalignment, like when you have those very different yous. But also, one very interesting thing Solar was talking about, and I also got pretty surprised on the where he went. Well, not super surprised, rather, but quite surprised. It was nice. It was interesting. But just rectify what I said about labor being slavery. So think about it like this, okay? When you don't understand that this reality, this simulation is fake, that everything inside it is faker than fake, then it's really hard, right? Because everything becomes a trap. After you understand it, for example, that, okay, if I work for someone, suppose you go to a company and you work there, okay? You can be the best ever. It doesn't necessarily mean that eventually you're going to reach the top of the company. You have a chance. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it doesn't mean that for sure you're getting there. And because also, for example, getting a higher salary, it's not all doesn't always means working well. Sometimes it just means having a good network, and that could be by talking to people, you know, in a certain way, or even, you know, compromising here or there. It's really about the networking you have with people, as in the relationship you have with the person. So not necessarily always about the technique. So not always about hobby, you know. So the thing is, after you understand that, then you think to yourself, why would I then work anywhere? Well, I think Solar gave a pretty good example when you can use that to climb the tree, for example. But then you understand that it's like it's just part of the journey. It's not the thing in itself. It's just means to reach a specific goal, and that's completely fine. You know, again, if you can understand why you're doing something, then you can transmute its meaning. Okay, because to you it's going to be different. So that was very interesting. And to finish here, and then Jim can go. So about money in itself, right? So one of the alchemical belts, I think it's out in two spaces now about them, but just a reminder, it would be like the stage of your consciousness. So starting from all the way down to mineral level, okay? So we can go down to mineral level, and then it evolves, and then it becomes a plant, and then it becomes an animal, and then becomes human. So humans will have many different alchemical belts. Think like a martial arts belt, okay, colored. And one of the last ones, so before the last one, before you stop being human, it's the golden one, which would make you, okay, need to understand how to be, first of all, materially independent. And what does it mean to be materially independent? Does it mean to have a quadrillion dollars in your bank account? Well, not necessarily. First of all, because if we already understood that money is fake, those quadrillion dollars don't mean anything. And well, nobody has quadrillion dollars. They have like stocks that are valued that way, and so on and so on. So it's not really about having the thing, but more so, are you independent from it? Can you live life knowing that everything will be served when it has to be? Again, like a bird, you know, it doesn't think, oh, tomorrow maybe don't have food. No, it just goes and fucking eats, and that's it. You know, the same with the lion. It doesn't think to itself, oh, you know, I gotta think to myself, what's the best plan here to get all the gazelles? No, it just goes and gets a gazelle, and that's it. You know, maybe that day one of the gazelles was kind of sick and it got and stayed behind. That's it. You know, it doesn't think about it. So it's independent. It's material life. It's independent from anything else. So it doesn't matter. It's not about the number. Don't get fixated on, oh, I need to be this and that. You need to be independent from it. It's a consciousness thing. It's not a material thing. Then afterwards, you would need spiritual independence. Again, you cannot be relying on always something external, because otherwise it's like if you need a third party to give you spiritual access, then it's going to be very, again, hard to you to continue ascending, because, well, the connection can get cut basically at some point. And then the third step, one of the steps there, would be philanthropy, because again, being wealthy means you can share. You are not going to be given a lot if you're not willing to share it. And sometimes you think, oh, but there's people, who have a lot and they don't share it. Well, don't they? Well, are you seeing, literally, are you living by them every day and seeing how they go? Because sometimes you share even if you don't want to. Sometimes, like, it just the way that it's set up, it has to be done this way. And again, the more you do it, the better it will flow through you, because that's how nature works. It just finds a pathway. Okay, this guy can handle large amounts of energy, for example, material energy. Let's send it to him, or her, or whatever, and it's gonna happen. So it's not necessarily about getting credit with some big guy in the clouds, but it's just, if you think about it, it's just efficiency. The simulator is very efficient. So if you can manage everything, and you're gonna share it and so on, so on, perfect. They will let you have everything. And it doesn't always have to be money. You can be a philanthrope by using your time, by using your health, by using your knowledge, by using whatever you have with you. And okay, one last thing, sorry. That one of the, I think, hardest blocks that would make someone go to, and live like Solar was talking about, in the close community and so on, would be having in their mind, they would think they would have to give up some things. For example, just talked about the cell phone. Okay, so think about it. Maybe if you're living in such society, maybe you would have to give up on having certain things. Well, would you? Because when we think about the cell phone again, do we really need a cell phone? If by default our bodies are capable of telepathy, are capable of doing a lot of the things that our cell phones do, because again, all technology is made from our body, from our soul, and so on and so on, then do we really need them, or are we just using them because it's more comfortable? I'm not saying fucking throw your phone out and so on. Maybe if you want, yeah, sure, but it's gonna be sad because you're not gonna listen to the spaces anymore. So it's kind of weird entangled now. But what I'm trying to say is, we really don't need those things. Like the fake internet that we are using right now is literally fake. It's a trap, quote unquote, because there's the quote unquote real internet that we could all also be using and so on. We can use both at the same time. As Kabbalists, there's always middle way you can do everything. But just remember this as well. There's never, not always, there is, the things are as they appear to be. So I think that's the last thing I'll point it out. And then maybe, I think Jin had his hands up, and then after Mike, I guess.
I'm going to cede the floor to Mike, but I just want to shout out that I did bring Seth up to speaker. So, Seth, if you're scared, don't be scared. This is his first time doing it, so yeah. He's a Logi, obviously. And I just want to also do a couple room shout outs. Sorry, Mike, just because I've tried to be as quiet as possible. Conscious Creations, thank you so much for coming. Appreciate you. Joppy, thank you so much for coming. Appreciate you. Enochian, appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming. Cassandra, obviously, Logi, as well as her own content creator. Thank you so much for coming. I want to shout out that MT Well, Mr. T, as I lovingly call him, our Vajra brother. He was also in the room. I also want to say, Zachary Shumar, obviously our lodge member, co-host on the Tracy Twyman series. He was also in the room, so thank you so much for coming. Zach is also a content creator. I just subscribed to his channels. I realized I didn't do it before, so I did that today. So you guys can go check that out. Okay, Moonblade, you got one. John, Ihaye, Asher, Ihaye, thank you so much for coming. Appreciate you, Logi. Steph, thank you so much for coming. Appreciate you. I hope you're enjoying it. This is a little different than the kind we usually host, but I'm gonna close this out with some metaphysics. So I think it'll be in keeping with everything that we kind of do on these Gonzo spaces. Rotting Flesh, thank you so much for coming. Appreciate you, and get ready for some Kabbalah if you're not, or Tantra, and I'm gonna, give it my best shot. And obviously, I'm gonna let Seth is going to give us some. I don't even know what it's called, Seth. Like the has shit. Like you can pill us on that after Mike. I'll cede the floor to you after that. Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. Mine's going to be real quick. I just want to comment a little bit on some of Matt's takes. Matt has a lot of very interesting takes, and I think you were able to convey a lot of more esoteric, subtle ways of how the world operates. And one of the things you mentioned was about the flow of money and what you were touching again on, like what is money and money just being energy, and how when somebody has a lot of money, like if they're sharing, I think there's a lot of natural forces which try either to which try to move money around, whether it's directly or karmic. And karma is like a very tricky thing to talk about because it comes at certain times and it can affect you in different ways, and it can affect you in good and bad ways in the same different way at different times. So it's very hard to pin down, and no one even knows exactly what their karma is. And you can have done a lot of good things, but might have like really fucked up karma from like one life where you were broke or something, and then right after you have good karma. So, but when somebody has a lot of money, I do think, yeah, if they're very greedy, and I think that they will have some type of forces will be working within them to try to like get that stuff going. And I've noticed when certain people have made a lot of money in crypto that don't deserve it, they feel very weird about it. Like I've seen many people who get millions, like just some of them like super young, like 18 years old, and they don't feel good about it. It's weird. They feel weird about it. And this has been a common perception for a few people that I've noticed because they feel like they don't deserve it. And I think forces in some way are trying to get that money kind of somewhere else. It's a lot of power. And some people, I, you know, aren't really meant to have it necessarily, or at least like at that point in their life. And what may happen is they may end up losing it, and then learning a lesson, and then maybe getting it at some other point. But money is a lot of power, and to like give that much power to someone who doesn't know how to utilize it correctly, it I think forces will try to get it somewhere else. But there's also the opposite, where there's people that are meant to have money and they don't get it just because of the way the world works. Like the world's not perfect. Like everything is not exactly how it should be. You should believe that, but sometimes shit happens. And that's all I want to say on that. Back to you, Jen, or whoever else.
Okay, Seth, sell us some ontology. You have 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Hopefully I don't take that long. Well, hello everyone. So when it comes to like, I guess what's the spiel I can give everyone? Uh, so like obviously I don't know how old everyone is in here or like where exactly everyone is from, but I guess I can just say, I am from Texas. I was like a literary student. I only ever read literature. I really hated politics and philosophy in particular because, at least in my high school, all the kids that were like super into philosophy were like terminal nerds, like just insufferable people. So unfortunately, I've only recently begun to read philosophy just as a matter of necessity because now it seems like I really do need to understand what exactly is going on. But as I'm sure everyone, maybe everyone has like a similar experience becoming acquainted with the left, which inevitably happens on Twitter. like 2018, 2019. Maybe you do some like light readings, you read some like the Marxist Manifesto or whatever. Maybe even read a couple chapters of Capital, and then you become immediately aware that all the quote unquote leftists who call themselves that, the million and one factions that they have, like the fucking, I don't know, like the LaRoucheites or the Trotskyites, the Marxist Leninists, the Bolsheviks, like there's just like 1,001 isms and ists. It becomes very clear that really the whole thing is just like this sort of dead metaphysics from a real political movement that occurred, like obviously the century prior. So no one really knows what like leftism is or what it could like even potentially accomplish. And then the few like material organizations that do exist, like I don't know, DSA, PSL, and whatnot, are like deeply unserious, heavily infested with like creepy occult, like bad occult, like CIA occult stuff. Like also just people are just flat out mentally ill. I mean, we've all seen the videos of the DSA conventions where they're like people in masks, people quivering, afraid to speak, just like not very socialized, not mentally sound individuals. So clearly, um, but what distinguishes them from, say, the organization that has recently emerged about a year and a half ago called the American Communist Party, ACP, is that people who sort of did take the leftist literature a little seriously, they really did try and read Marx and Hegel, and we're sort of interested in discovering, you know, what can be done, essentially. Like the more Leninist type people, um, they at least early on they tried to find a way to distinguish themselves from the egregore of the anarchist left. I just call them all anarchists because um, that's like the one thing they all seem to share, and that can be distinguished from, say, an avowed American Communist Party member. Um, because first and foremost, ACP stands for like a restoration of authority with a capital A, um, and moreover, a synthesis of previous revolutionary traditions in particular. Unlike, I don't know, like PSL in particular, they're not trying to cast off America's revolutionary tradition, for example. They're not trying to denigrate the founding fathers or um, cast away all the history and events and traditions that led to this particular moment in history. They're not trying to do that. What they're trying to do is rediscover um, the essential being and principles that could then constitute a new or novel civilization after the present regime falls. So whereas, like, especially PSL will say things like really insane, adventuristic things like, we're going to topple the government and blah, 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 all that crap. Um, the ACP is more pragmatic in the sense that it is pretty sure that the United States of America, the current regime, the current, like, little alliance and dialectic of Democrats and Republicans and the oligarchical class is going to ruin itself and bring about a civil war. What exact form that takes, I mean, I don't think anybody knows. But really, the ACP is just like essentially trying to take responsibility for that coming conflict and try to salvage some kind of real American civilization from the wreckage. So that's what, and what's interesting about that is that at least in their like in their periodicals and some of the podcasts that they have, Hazuddin in particular is really interested in, like, I guess Heidegger and like fundamental questions of being, which is like a really fresh voice and nothing I've really seen or heard before, except of course when I've like briefly forayed into the Grey Lodge, and heard Jin and the rest of y'all, maybe Solar, talk about ontology a little bit. So it's really interesting to me, at least, to observe that there's like two groups. I mean, obviously, this group is very vitalistic. I'm pretty sure there are. I'm probably the only materialist in the lodge. um, but it's interesting that despite this fundamental, I guess, philosophical difference, all of us are all converging on the same question of the same essential question of being, and like, what is America? And then naturally, what could it be, or what could be synthesized into a new, productive, novel form of being? Essentially, we're all trying to escape the vampire's castle, to borrow the Mark Fisher term. Obviously, we all have we all represent different particularities and different kinds of American being, but we're all interested in getting off the sinking Titanic. So that's just like my. I'm not necessarily trying to pill anyone or proselytize ACP in particular. I am not a member of ACP. I'm not even a member of Infrared. I actually got kicked out of the IGG Discord for being annoying. So I'm not even like a tanky. I'm just like I'm just a curious individual who maybe has like materialist tendencies and general nascent, well, hopefully not nascent, but like burgeoning philosophy. So I'm very sad I missed Solar's. I was throwing everything at Solar. I like gave him like at least 150 pages of crap in like a Google Drive. Like really sad I missed like the 10 minutes that I was away preparing food for my mom. Sorry, Solar. Hopefully there's a way for me to like, I guess, rewatch that section or something. But yes, thank you everyone for listening to me rant about the left.
Thank you so much, Seth. Great job. Really. So I actually took notes. I know you'll all just be dying of shock. Okay, so I have so many things, honestly. Ontology. So let me address that first. It was me that you heard speaking of ontology because why? Dharma is ontology. Buddhism is ontology. Buddhism exists at the ontological level. This is why you see me get into fights with people who believe in fixed husks. And I agree with you, Joseph. A lot of the words that we use are very husky. And we should shed a few pounds, probably. That's the truth. And so we can pare down. That's much more. I'm not going to bring it into the level of economics. And by the way, great job, guys. Great fucking job. Honestly, you all made me so proud. I was like, fuck yeah. I was like, this is great. This is what it should be. It should be fuck the Archons every Friday night. That's what we should call it. Fuck the Archons radio. I'm just kidding. I like the Grey Lodge and I like our speculative titles because I think it keeps it kind of vague poster. Like, like that's kind of my style, right? So, I'm the style master of this kind of thing, and they're the wild progenitor, at least in some way. And so, yeah, I like that. But okay. Next thing, ontology. So I said that. Okay, decentralization. I agree. Solar brought that up. I have dropped Murray Bookchin, like Google Murray Bookchin, the joke in this space a year ago. You can go listen to them on YouTube. Matt knows exactly what I'm talking about. I did it first. So definitely, but it is also kibbutzim. Like people don't understand that this was like a kind of like a religious socialist concept. And I'm not even like a socialist. Like I'm nothing. I'm like a libertarian. Like I'm kind of like, I don't know. Solar was kind of joking about me, but I'm kind of like that. Like that's kind of my life, right? Like that Jeffersonian model he was talking about. I don't live on a homestead, but I mean, I do, but it's not like that. But yeah, I mean, everyone in the group chat kind of knows. So it is, I'm being flexible. I'm like, we're exploring ideas. I'm not saying I'm any ideological way. I hate ideology, actually. I'm post ideological. I've said this since my whole internet presence. I do like elements of things. I'm personally conservative, so I identify with what Joshua said. But I also I'm not trying to conserve some bullshit either. That's the truth. Like, there are things there are, right? You can decide. You can decide which husks you want to keep and which you want to discard. Maybe they're not even husks. Maybe they're corpses, as in a corpus of ideas or literature, and you slice off the piece you need, you take that, make something interesting of it. This is something Seth and I were talking about, is like focusing on what is generative. I've said that through the whole Aeon of the Daughter space. I said, this is what this is about. It's about focusing on the generative qualities of our Aeon, of this Kalpa. The generative qualities is a male and a female pairing. This has really nothing to do with what I was saying before, but I'm just saying that is sort of should be the nexus point of like people's focus, but that doesn't have to be like the kind of institutional pairings that we've seen before. I'm just saying that people can be like a little more. We've seen a lot. We've lived through a lot. We get a different crazy cam girl on the timeline every week doing some crazy sicko shit. I mean, we are hypersexualized culture. Like, there is no question about it. Like, we all know about everything. Like, I don't know that much, but I'm constantly learning, and it's way too much for me. And this is the thing. I think that Joseph said it properly or correctly. Like, we have to discern our mediatic environment. We have to be gardeners in what could be described as a untamed and wild landscape. So this is also very Kabbalistic, right? Like the guy said, like the Jamie Paul Lamb, he said it. He said Malkuth is about flux, but so is Hokmah. Both are about flux. Exactly the same thing that we have talked about so many times. So many times. And that's why I got teary. Because it was like, wow, it was like I knew I was right. That's the funny thing. Is like I knew this was the correct modeling. But to hear someone else say it, who you have no relation to, even the material you use to describe it is slightly different, but you arrive at the same conclusions, that's a true noetic process, to use like a solar phrase. So, and I want to say, shout out big time to brother Matt. He did a great job at moderator. He really did. And he stepped up, totally organic, totally did it by himself. Good job. I'm really proud of you, and you kept up with everybody. Of course you did, but yeah, it was really great. And for the next thing, Ernst Junger. Okay, I just want to say, for the record, I have always liked this archetype of the anarch. Always. It's very interesting. It's not about like anarchism as it is presented on Twitter with like people who are like have very wildly transgressive personal lives. It is very different. It's like very much what Solar described. But I just wanted to say, to distinguish myself, is that I have been interested in this archetype for some time. And it also correlates to Murray Bookchin in his later career. He became a member of the Libertarian Party. I'm not saying you have to be down with that, but you have to be flexible. Like we always say, be flexible in your frameworks. Because you never know where a seed is going to arise, just like tonight. They put something in the Aether Wave. I'm not even going to include myself. I'm just going to say they did. And of course, I, serve a function, but it wasn't really me. So I'm just saying that they put it into the Aether Wave. And so that's what it's going to be. It's not going to be full agreement. We're not going cult-like. Like, yes, that was a joke from Solar. And so, but the next thing I wanted to say about that was Joseph is correct that would be the next step for the Grey Lodge, would be like our own compound. Well, I don't know if it were a next step, but it would be a really awesome idea. Just a speculative, right? We're just saying very speculatively that, yeah, that would be a very Hapaborean place, right? And so that's why I'm saying is like we shouldn't be discarding these things. Yeah, that we made fun of them. We all did. We're all hypocrites. Horrible. Okay, we admit it. We atone. We're sinners. Okay. Rectification. Matt said it. He rectified something he said in the moment. That's a Kabbalistic work. That's how you have to treat it. That's really how you have to treat it. And I do encourage, see, this is why I'm a more, if you want to say I'm a more like post-left book tonight, or I'm a more like Ernst Jünger, like influenced by like both metaphysics in this like post-conceptual way, or I'm just a Dharma realist. And that's actually how I'd prefer to describe myself. So this goes to the next thing. Joshua, you asked about what is the Buddhist relationship to money. So this is actually really interesting. This is actually, really interesting. Because we have a fundamentally it's not how I think people would normally think of it. There are sadhanas for wealth. There are practices for increasing your business. There are, I think fundamentally it goes to what Mike was talking about, of karma. These things are not for black magic. They're not for to actually increase your business, but they may have that sort of subtle or gross sometimes effect. But they're actually to alleviate your karmic conditions, meaning for this life and for the past lives, and maybe if you're lucky, for the next one. So yeah, that's what karma is. It's the chain of causal sort of events, and people can have great karma in a life, and the next one can be complete shit. I think Mike even spoke to this. It's because they didn't. It's because they made bad choices. That's the inevitable result. Or if you want to think of it Kabbalistically, you made dialectical errors. You created paradox. You created klipas, and then you got fucking stuck in them. The worst of all sins. Right? We're liberated here. We're free here. You have to, but it is about that kind of a rectification that has to happen. And rectification happens in the middle pillar. Just remember that. Yeah, I know, I get it. Left-hand path. Like, I talk about chaos magic too, Nagas. I'm just kidding. I just like to tease him because, like I always said I was the chaos magician, and now he's gone to practice Liber KKK. It's like, oh, I can't even have my own thing anymore. I'm just kidding. There's no competition. There really isn't, because it's very different. It's like a very different approach. But I do like his model of the warrior monk. I will say that. I think that's a really interesting kind of like contemporary male archetype. Not because it's like a monk is inherently, oh, you must be shamanic, or you must like, no, but it's like a householder monk, which is the true thing. And this was the other point. And I promise this does relate, Joshua, to Buddhist money. I'm going to bring it all back. I have a very clear map in my head. I've made the paths already. All this time to think, all night. So the traditional tantric societies were set up very much like what we are. We talked about this in the last space. There's some go off and become like crazy sex cults. Obviously, that's nothing to do with what we talk about, what we do. Like there's like very, that's not our way. We're middle path. I can understand why people do that, because yes, sexuality is very metaphysically powerful in multiple different ways, both conceptually, practically, and pragmatically. It just is. I'm sorry. That is just the metaphysical reality of it. There are different ways to conceptualize of it. There are different ways to understand it. This isn't some James Lindsay like Gnostic bullshit, but at the same time, it kind of is, because it's kind of metaphysically true. But it's not about saying, oh yeah, we love everything. It's not about saying everything is correct. There are paradoxes. Just because something in wisdom science says something does not make it primordially true at all. There are so many paradoxes, and a really good Kabbalist, like not even, like way past me, way past Matt, and Matt's better than me, but way past Matt, way past Asachki, who's better than all of us. And then there's Jamie Paul Lambs, and then I died. He was like, I'm really not that good of a Kabbalist. And I was like, you're the best Kabbalist I ever met. Like, they literally said that. And then he was like, I'm not that good at it. I was like, fuck, is this what the Golden Dawn is turning out? That's pretty impressive. But then he talked about Islamic wisdom science, and I was like, that's okay. skip that. Because I believe that Tantra resolves all these questions. The synthesis that happened in Kashmir resolves all of these paradoxes. The Sabians lived. Hyperborea is real. Hyperborea is real. Yeah, Nagas, it's North America. It's Turtle's back. The wheel turning's here. Anne of the daughter. Love over will. I have so much more stuff to talk about. Okay, Joseph, I am a Sundare. That is the truth. I love hard and hard to love. So that's it. You know? I love a negative polarity. What can I say? Is that really any surprise? Look at my posting history; it's just insane. Viral clips, you know. You make the best of the carnal ground that you can, and I've tried to do that. And through this sort of speculative series and through this space, obviously, the Grey Lodge, I believe that in a way we kind of rectify, or we have the ability, we'll say potential, we'll be very positivistic Kabbalists. We'll say, yeah, the paths are already built for us because we built them. We are very much the builders. Because conceptual thinking is building. That's 100% true. That's why I say also, when you're on this Rahuvian device, I can't remember who brought that up. I think it was Matt. I think it was Brother Matt brought up technologies. And yeah, your phone is your Rahu device. There's unquestionably, it is a Rahu device. It is a fake technology at the end of the day. The software is the Ketu, the smoky or subtle body. That's also what was profound about the Jamie Paul Lamb interview, Joshua, is that I'm using the Vedic way, or it's really a more tantric way, more than strictly Vedic, but he used the same thing. He talked about the exact same thing. He used Platonic model, but I understood exactly what he's saying. That's what made it profound, because I was like, I use a completely different framework, but I was able to fundamentally understand what he's saying. So it's really easy to see how miscommunication really can happen, because small incidences of paradox really do damage the sort of wisdom transmission from one system to the next. If there is a multiple paradox, but even just one, it depends how egregious it is. And as I told Seth yesterday, I think in his it takes 3 counter moves, 3 negations to fix a paradox. So think of it. 3 aeons, perfect, Seth, not our Seth, but Quicksilver Surfer Seth. Well, maybe that's the same, but who knows? So you have Seth, who is the adamantine will, Nuria, who is, of course, love as the cause of knowledge. Shout out, Brother Rom. And then you also have Zoe. This is really interesting, because it came up actually in the chat. I know. Nobody knows what I'm talking about, do they? Maybe you do. I think Rom does. Zoe is actually easily comparable to the Indo-Aryan. But who cares about that? That's not my way of looking at the world. It's just, that's where she's from. But she's also in Dharma, Buddhist Dharma. And her name is Maratsi. She's not the goddess of the dawn. She's not the goddess of the dusk. She actually comes in between those two things. She's invisible. You might say, this reminds me of Mithras. Why, yes. The Avestan word for Mithras and Maratsi share a root, which is the contract, the treaty, karma, the kind of contractual obligations we have to each other and to the geo-ontological landscape around us. The relational elements that you can't really put a price on. It's not about public ownership per se. It's not like, oh, I want the state to do that. No, I'm like very anti-tanky in that way. I'm just going to be honest. It just gets misused. People can have the best intentions, best thinking that they're the highest consciousness beings and they have the best intentions for humanity. But you know what the truth is we saw what happened. We did see what happened. We saw what happened when institutions decided to they were in charge of our, they impeded on our sovereignty. That's what happened. They did a Kabbalistic imposition onto us. Regardless of what you thought of what happened. It was, for every single person. The hardest libtard coping with their mask still on in their PFP. Even that person, yeah, they were violated as a sovereign person. 100%. We have to acknowledge that. We can laugh at them, but that is what happened. So let's speak more to primordial truth than to relative truth, right? So that's also kind of to answer Matt's point. It's all consciousness. If you can't tame your own consciousness, how can you tame other people? How can you tame things outside of you? How can you tame your land? How you want to be Jeffersonian? You better be practicing sadhana every day, sitting out there, taming those land yakshas. You want to be a real tantric? You want to wear big britches on Twitter? Like that Steve Kang guy? I'm being serious about that. He wants to threaten people with protector practices and all of this. You want to be tough? Why aren't you going out there and doing it every day? Are you tamed in your consciousness? I'm not saying I'm a perfect vehicle. I'm a very imperfect vehicle. But I do practices, and I do sadhana, and I do believe in it, and I do know for a fact, fundamentally that love is the cause of knowledge. And you can interpret that whatever way you want. But the reality is I'm talking fundamentally about a Kabbalistic or Tantric or higher experience, climbing the tree. If I can do it, you can do it. You have to both synthesize and rectify, and that also means in your own life. Like Solar said, you can't control what other people think or do or perceive even in the world. You only can bring it in. So, Buddhist relationship to money. I guess it's all about desire. Suffering and desire go hand in hand. So, it's not about giving up everything. It's about transmuting desire. That's the difference with Tantra. You can transmute desire. You can take it. You can apply it. You listen. You want to be in love. You want to go do adult things. That's fine. Be in love. Go be adults. But the reality also is like this aeon does require a strong sense of self-discipline. And it's counter to the hookup culture. It just is. It's not about trad life. That's fake. Just forget about that. It's not even real. That's a total klipa. People totally made that up online. I'm serious. Like on Twitter, I don't think it exists at all in the real world, in my experience. So, but we have to rectify, and we have to bring the traditions forward that are useful. Yes, Joseph, please go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. I wanted to, because you brought it up, I wanted to bring up something that I've wanted to talk about for a while. And that is the sexuality, because I know it's kind of like I've been observing how it is like the whole topic, and even in society, it's like backed away from. Like people don't want to talk about it. And yes, there is an over proliferation of just junk food, porn, gross nonsense available everywhere unnecessarily. However, I also sense an overcorrection in some cases, especially in because I'm Gen X, but I see it in like younger generations. Like there is like this kind of like deer in the headlights kind of scared prudery that I think is a direct result, almost like an allergic reaction to like all of the like in your faceness of it. And what I would urge and like hope that people can remember is that it is a celebration too. Like we have to allow the energy to flow in that part of our lives in the most healthy way, and remember that it is, there's a lot of charnel ground here, but it is the garden at the same time, and maybe there has to be some gardening going about. And I know at the same time there's this uptightness, this kind of like really kind of desperate plea, like we have to make more people. We must make more people. But like, what is going to be the quality of the people that are made from that energy of like, we have to do it. It's kind of, they're going to be like really uptight people as well. And so like the best kind of people are like just made from love, right? So I think we have to be careful of an overcorrection of the sex thing, because it's just not healthy too in many other ways. That's all I could go on. I love this topic. I like it. I like sex. It's great. And I'm a proponent of it. So there you go. Thank you.
Okay, Seth, please go ahead.
That's an interesting point, Joseph. If I may speak as a I guess a middle-aged Zoomer, because I guess I was born in like the middle. um, I'm not sure. I think the prudishness is just a facade. I'm also a gay man, so maybe what do I know really about straight people relations? But just from like the friends I've had or I have and observed their behaviors, there is like an expression of this uptightness, but it feels very formal. It feels like an expression of courtesy, like, oh, this is what I have to say so I don't get in trouble. But in reality, the homies be having, I'm trying not to be too obscene so Jen doesn't yell. They are being fruitful. um, yes, straight, gay. I think what is more concerning on a material level, at least from what I've observed, is the rampant spread of just prostitution, especially like online, extremely alienated prostitution. And then the phenomena of course the AI sex bots. Um, that's like a source of genuine concern, because it's like a material physical imposition on an otherwise organic set of relations that would lead to like love, the capital L. And hopefully, God willing, the blessings of many, many children, happy marriages. Instead, what you see is like this polyamory shit, which is also like, I know everyone makes fun of like the leftoids for doing this, but like the people on the right, like the Baptist shitheads, they do the same thing. Like, it is just as deranged and degenerate, and some of them are literally like either whoring out their girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever it is. Like, I guess one account that very much does like make fun of himself and tell on that whole sphere, like Howling Mutant. Like, one of his running jokes is like the bowl joke, like the cuck and the bowl or whatever. And I don't think he's joking about that. I think he's actually being dead ass about a practice of a lot of these supposedly machismo right-wing men who are literally uh, whoring out their partners or their wives or their girlfriends or whatever it is, and to me that's more concerning, because the fundamental potential for love is still there, but then it gets immediately corrupted into these increasingly deranged set of social relations. That's what I would observe. But at least the impulse, like the human impulse, I feel is still there. People still definitely still want to find love, and it's such a strong, overwhelming external like impulse that people are still like grasping for, despite abject material circumstances. So I don't, I'm not sure if the prudishness is such a cause of concern so much as the return to like Victorian era degeneracy, where no one is really admitting what is actually going on. But that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, brother Seth. I thought that was very fascinating, and thank you, Joseph. A lot to think about. Matt, please go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, Seth, man, I love your laugh. Please come on more times and laugh. It's really nice, honestly. So, actually, you guys probably didn't plan on that, but as you were talking about it, I got reminded of another conceptual speculative idea about economy, which is the economy of DNA and souls. What is the value of DNA? What is the value of your soul? When people say, you know, oh, I'm selling my soul and whatever. Okay, if you're selling it, it has some value. What is the value? So, well, first idea, DNA. It's very pretty obvious in our faces, you know, all the religion stories and whatever. Most of them have some DNA thing on them. So, for example, Genesis, you'll see probably somewhere already people saying like, oh, genetic of Isis and whatever. And really, when you see the stories, it's going to be all about, you know, for example, the Greeks once, Zeus impregnating 1,000 people and whatever. And that's like where all the problems come from, and so on, and the stories, or something along those lines, like even in the cosmological ideas, right? There's always what I'm speaking here, DNA, but in cosmology wouldn't necessarily be exactly the same one-to-one, but this idea of trading information, right? So in the same way, again, your soul is an information. Your soul, the way I see it, is your imagination. So what you can imagine is your soul, the one sending the symbols, okay? So that is like you cannot calculate the value it has on this reality. Why? Because, well, for anything in this reality to exist, it must come from imagination. So guess what? If you have 30% of people imagining something, it's going to come. So when you, quote unquote, sell your soul to talk about a specific narrative, for example, and push a specific narrative, because that's what really selling your soul it's about. It's about you stop using your imagination and you start using someone else's imagination. Well, guess what? You're going to stop bringing stuff that only you can bring because your imagination is unique, and you're going to bring stuff that, well, somebody else paid you to do it. And again, it's invaluable. So almost never it makes sense. Also because it's very likely that the contract that you're making, you cannot even read. If we are talking about really selling your soul, not just metaphorically, you know, like going to carpool life and whatever. Like if you're really doing quote unquote magic to do this kind of stuff with people from quote unquote the other side, you're likely not going to be able to read the whole contract. So don't even bother. It doesn't make any sense. But anyways, so there's this whole idea of, again, the DNA being valuable. And again, think about it in the sense that if you choose, for example, so for starters, it is where a lot of people get stuck when we're talking about personal economy, because they are stuck in this idea of, you know, I need a partner, I need to solve the relationship thing, and they cannot focus on anything else aside from I need to, you know, fix this, because it's, again, it's innate, it's programmed in the body biologically. You need that, especially as men, like the quote unquote need for it, or apparent need. It's crazy sometimes. You know, men don't know what I'm talking about. So it really can be a stepping stone for you to solve other things if you don't have that fixed. But again, so it's in the mind. So like Jim was saying, if you can transmute it into something else, then it's not a problem anymore. You don't need to necessarily physically solve it. You can also just mentally solve it and solve it consciously. But the idea is, well, DNA being valuable, think from any perspective, right? From the men's perspective and from the woman's. So from the men's perspective, you're not getting DNA from someone else necessarily, but you're pushing your DNA forward. You're pushing your idea, your code forward. Okay, so that's, let's say, the game that you're playing. And with woman, it's the opposite. You're getting information in. Some might say that you're always exchanging anyway. So even if it's not necessarily on a biological level, let's say, there is some ideas about, I think it's called, I forgot exactly the name right now, but it's the idea that like when you have the intercourse and like the woman can still get some of the DNA of the old partners and whatever. There's a specific name for that. I forgot the name, but it's whatever. Again, it's all speculative. But you could say that even though maybe that's true, it wouldn't necessarily be true for them. Okay, that's what you're talking about physical level. But energetically, it's always there. You're always exchanging, and the more, again, the deeper the connection, and when I mean here deeper, I mean all levels, physically, emotionally, and so on and so on, the more information that is going to be exchanged. So I think it's going to be, well, it's already happening, as everyone can see, the shift from, the more Age of Pisces, romance, kind of, dreamy, very watery type of relationships, to now this, again, Age of Aquarius, kind of, I'm the one that matters. And as it's kind of like seeing others as kind of this thing, as when people say, oh, Aquarius is like humanitarian, whatever, it's more so, not that this is wrong, but in the terms of relationships, it's thinking like, I don't necessarily care about that specific person, but more so I care about the group, right? So it makes very sense to me that relationships are going to have a big change, and it could be that a lot of the what Seth was talking about, the polyamory or whatever, doesn't have to be necessarily that, but something along those lines where maybe it's not going to be that common that people are going to stay together for their whole life, was maybe, my grandma would do, but you would have like, I don't know, 5, whatever, many partners in life, or, it's going to be definitely different, and let's see how that works out. But funny how it still kind of relates to the topic of the spaces here, because in a way you could say that the DNA and the soul is even more valuable than what we were talking about the whole thing, which is money.
Okay, I want to respond to one quick thing. Serial monogamy, I think that's fine in a way. Like, I'm not talking about like serial monogamy, but I'm talking about like, you're gonna have multiple partners, but like you don't have to do body count, right? Like I'm saying, I'm saying that, Seth, for you, because he teased me about that I clocked myself for body count, but you could never go back and ever guess or know, or I would never talk about that. So what I'm saying is, but those right wing people that are talking about it, you think that they haven't had sex with over 100 people? And they're degenerate? They're truly degenerate. That's the truth. So don't be like them. That's my advice. That's just my advice. But it goes all along with what Matt was saying about DNA. There's a karmic connection you make through sex, especially. It's especially profound. Very profound. So do not, do not, do not have sex with randos. I'm just telling you. I'm saying that that's better. Like, you want to do what you want to do? Okay. Okay, Naga. But, like, keep it contained a little. And I wanted to talk about that concept of love. Because we talked about this last week with the seed syllable for the aeon is hrim, and how that relates to the idea of self-respect. Well, love, obviously, and hrim are interconnected, right? So you could say love is actually self-respect. So self-respect is not doing degrading things and not wanting to do degrading things with your partner, probably. And I'm using partner very specifically simply because it probably isn't the perfect Paracelsian pairing at all times or what the fuck ever. Like I really don't care is the truth. But I just want to express it also in Kabbalistic terms, and the Paracelsian pair is the best and it's the easiest, and also correlates to Buddhism. And as I said, I'm conservative, so I'm going to stick to more that layer. But you have to do what you have to do. I get it, okay, but you don't have to. Also, I don't think it should be in public, really. And our culture shouldn't be built around like structures that are clearly klipothic, like very obviously klipothic, and not in the cool way of like burning klipas or breaking them or whatever, like disaggregating them. Those things everybody knows I love to do. I think that's what these spaces are even about. It's like every Every space, it's like break some timeline klipas, no matter how small. Just like kick over the garden pause, right? Because that's what it's about. That's what the whole thing is like we're the disaggregators. We are the husks. Or we're not the husk. We're the husk collectors in our winnowing basket. Right? Right, Rom? It's very Dumavati. Collect the grains and collect the husks and sift through it. Very Hokmah, very widow of the smoky place. So, and then I think that goes back to what Joshua said about Buddhist money, which I didn't really answer properly. But I will say, look, you have to have a sort of common currency throughout the world. As we said, there in Kalachakra, speculative Kalachakra. Thank you, Joseph. Speculative Kalachakra. You have to consider that different places are going to turn in different ways. Probably is easy. Some places will need cash. Some places will need whatever. Obviously, we shouldn't push for centralized control of anything. It's like now is the time. I'm just saying now is the time. Like I think all of us probably for a long time have been thinking about these ideas of decentralization and like all everything that's happening because we were kind of primed for it, right? Like this was in school in like the 90s. Like people were talking about it. Like culture jamming, sort of like anti-globalization. Like everybody kind of knew. There was like the clock seemed to kind of speed up after 99, I think. After 2001, you could say. So let's go with it. Let's see where it takes us. Let's be discerning, right? Bring it into synthesis, bring it into rectification, middle pillar, bodhicitta maxing. It's the truth. Like be relational with people and like try, but that doesn't mean take bullshit either, right? I always said this especially in the early spaces, like the best defense is a good offense. I sincerely believe that in both magic and in real life. So take of that what you mean. Maybe it relates to Solar's like micro curses, like the rune of hail. I don't know. Maybe. Oh, Joshua, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just had a quick comment because you guys were talking about partners and all, and it made me think. I agree of like monogamy because it's the most economical, and so after having this space, I now have a different view of economics. It's expensive to date a bunch of people. You got to start from square one every time, So it does start to save you money the moment you choose to be monogamous, I think. So I just thought that was kind of funny, like because you typically do get into like a rhythm of eating and eventually you're shopping together. Like inevitably you combine resources, and that's where the economics really enters into it, if you're somewhat conservative or traditional. But I just wanted to share that because that was the thought that kind of popped in my head. And just really shout out to women, because if this is something that adds to their value inherently, I think, from a cultural perspective. So like if they know how to sew and cook from scratch or do all these sorts of things, herbalism, think of all the money you save by not having to run to the doctor all the time, or you can substitute things when cooking or hem garments. I mean, like women can save a lot of money. So anyway, or partners, I guess. Sorry. But anyway.
No, I think it's fine to say men and women. That's the normative. So that's what we're dipping into that. We're leaning in. And I agree with Joseph. There probably was an overcorrection, but you know what? We're gonna just lean into that. We're just gonna ride the dip, I think, as Mike would say, on that, and we're just gonna go with it. So it'll come back. The dialectic never ends, right? It's not really a dialectic. It's like it's this Kelly Slater moving through the wave. That's really what it is. It's just that it's like it's up to us to perceive it, right? That's really what it is. And then do we believe the angle they tell us? Do we believe the angle that we see in the water? No, I agree. We do not. We use our own discernment and our own discrimination, and discrimination is found in self-respect. So like the fire of perception, the heatless flame, the daughter, the aeon of the daughter, Kirkula, all of it, path 22. So on a path, not a Sephira. very different than the other Kabbalists that had come before, right? Like, it is kind of an innovation. Like, I brought to you an innovation. You don't have to agree with it, but it is a Kabbalistic innovation. Nobody else can ever claim that it wasn't like a huge difference than what had come before. So I'm not trying to give myself props, but at the same time, I'm just trying to say that there is a pragmatism. No, but it's about because the paths are not the Sephira, right? That's I think the profound thing about what I said is that the paths are about us, aeon of man, aeon of us. The daughter has to arise from us. Bodhicitta has to arise from us. And I don't think that necessarily has to do with socialism, and I hate that word. I hate that klipa. But I think it does have to fundamentally arise in like a renegotiation. Very Mithraic, right? Like a total renegotiation with each other and with our, geontological relatives. Yes, Seth, please go ahead.
I just wanted to, William, what if you could, since we're talking about economies, what if you could diversify your portfolio? I mean, sure, monogamy is great, right? You have a partner that can do everything, but what if you could have a partner that does one particular niche thing? It's like hyper specialized. They're like a grand sage master of like laundry. And then you have another partner for cooking, and then another partner for like therapy, emotional uses, uh, that sort of thing. One partner who's just the plug, for speculative pharmaceutical.
Okay, who's building the wife and husband trading platform then? I need it.
Well, that's the scary thing right now, right? Is like what we are getting hemmed in. I can even feel it. I know.
So it's a withdrawal. You have to withdraw, but I think we can't be a fighting against. It's a withdrawal from, because then it'll just atrophy.
Well, that's also what's happening, right? They're trying to build the Klipothic walls around us. That's what a lot of the thing is. And you're right, Joseph. It's withdrawal. But it's not withdrawal in weakness.
No. It's withdrawal to build the energy, tantrically from within, into, shoot it up the spine. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I like that. Self-illuminous. You have to be self-illuminate. The guru comes truly from within, but it's not yourself. This is so important, this distinction. It's not yourself. It's not who you think you are. It's not coming from you. It's coming from something else. Don't think of it as supernatural per se. Of course, you can frame it in those terms. There are supernatural things you can say, phenomena in the world, but of course, it comes back to your own consciousness. It really does. That is the vehicle and also the palace. From there, you can perceive all things in the world. From Yesod. You can. From the hyperlunar kingdom, you could say. The crystal millennium kingdom, right? Sailor Moon? Sachki. That's what it is. It's true. We could live the most amazing, pristine life. We could live like Dubai, in North America at least. We could. But like, do we want to throw it away? And like, yeah, I don't mind. Nice car. Some nice fit. Yeah, that's good. I'm going to buy some sneakers. But you know what? The truth is that that's also like craving. It's also self-clinging. It's also desire. But there's something cool, I think, and we've talked about this. There is kind of a hipster inclination to buy like handmade goods, like a lot of Japanese denim. Like, yeah, you all know, Ron likes to tease me, Swagapino, Hypabeast. Yeah, both true probably. I'm not Swagapino, for the record. I don't like Swagapino. I reject that label 100%. Break that klipa. But Hypabeast definitely self-styled, but also ROM approved. Japanese denim is handmade. It's hand-dyed. It's all like it's a natural process. Yeah, it costs hundreds of dollars, but you know what? It's worth it for me. Like, I like it. So if I want to spend that money, that's fine. And so that's what I think it's also about. It's like about like, but we do have to kind of return to craftsmanship. Like, there is kind of an idea that is true. And I agree that like you can't say like everyone return to trades. But there is also an idea that it's like there is something fucking good about trades. I'm going to tell you, as someone who's constantly looking for them, it's true. It's hard to find, and like I'm not even talking about good ones. I'm just talking about like anyone. It can be really hard to get skilled people. So I'm not against what people are talking about. Like, and it is part of decentralization, right? We don't want to. You don't want to remake or reform the institutions. Like that is so bourgeois. Like, give me a break. I'm serious. Like that guy in Florida and like the new Florida college. Like, who gives a fuck? I'm just being real. I'm just being totally off the cuff, but I'm being serious. Like, do you want to like sit around and reform and sit in like academic bodies and do this committee, and then it goes to the institutional head who makes like $1.2 million every year or $3 million now because they all they do get insane. They get insane salaries. A lot of them, especially for public employees, like in Canada, you have to think like every university is public here. So like why
Shit, Jed, you gotta hook me up. I'm trying to find a job at the moment.
look, I don't know about that anymore. I left that life behind a long time ago. All I can tell you is that I agree with what Matt said. You have to do something that you want to do, and what Mike said too. It's like you can't listen to these like stupid influencers. Like, do you want to be a pimp? Do you want to talk about bad karma? Do you want to be a pimp like Joe? Like, what's the fuck's his name? I don't even know his name. Andrew Tate. Do you want to be a fucking pimp? Do you know what bad karma? Do you know what they say in Buddhism? You come back as a pig, multiple lifetimes. A pig. I'm not kidding. I'm being 100. I know it's funny. I'm being 100% serious. You come back as a pig that gets eaten over and over and over again. I'm serious. And you don't have to think of that as like, oh, fire and brimstone, but just think of it like that's what your karmic implication is. I know some people don't believe in this. I know some people think like karma's bullshit. It's just like a Buddhist way to get like hold you down, keep you back. No. It's the fundamental treaty between us, it's the fundamental relationship between us. If we cannot uphold, and also the cosmos. Like the thing is like it's predicated on us upholding it because we choose to. We have to acknowledge it. We overcome the pig. What does the pig mean? This came up in the chat. The pig is the symbol of ignorance. Of ignorance of what, Naga? It is the ignorance of the way the universe is. The universe is fucking run by karma. It's not Indian karma. It's not Hindu karma. It's free. It's dharmic karma, meaning that we have to acknowledge it. We have to choose to practice it. We have to be agential of ourselves to practice bodhicitta. That's it. I know that's not as cool. I know that's not, full razor's edge. I get it, 100%. But it is the truth. Yes, Joseph. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's totally great. Well, this goes in line with something that you said a little bit earlier as well, is that, we are not the guru. We're going inside, but we are not, don't start thinking of ourselves as we are the guru. What I find most satisfying, I guess you'd say, not even satisfying. No, what is really great about the process for me of going inward, meditation, and all the work that I'm doing in that, sector is then there is no me. Like when I feel like there's no Joseph, like that's the place that is like most, when that is happening, it's so great. So I like that there is no me. That's quite recharging.
I mean, it's all emptiness, isn't it? It's the truth of the universe. Everybody can tell you. Any person who practices wisdom science is like, they're like, yeah, that's like, I already know that. That's like nothing. And I'm like, here it is. It's a profound truth. And it is. It's very profound. Very profound. But it's also like, it seems relatively conventional in a way. And then when people who haven't had experiences will hear other people discuss it just like we are, they'll be like, what the fuck are they talking about? But the truth is, it doesn't have to be mediated by like a Joe Rogan like trip. Like, yeah, sure. You know, you all know, one of us ate a couple, not me, I swear, not me, ate a couple, some things, some legal things that were interesting. So it's fine. Like, your consciousness is yours. That's part of being a sovereign human being. That's where they're right. That's where, like, that whole crew is right. You're a sovereign being in your consciousness. But I do believe you also have to choose bodhicitta, and you have to choose karma. Like, you have to not choose karma in the Indian way, like eternalist. No, you can break the karmic chains. You can choose something different. Yes, it's really hard. We get habituated into certain ways of action. Everybody talks about this. Obviously, Buddhism is the obviously OG. But yeah, you get habituation, you get skandhas, you get aggregated. Yeah, everything is an aggregation. Everything. The sound, the music playing behind me. But I also chose it for the vibe. So we're purifying the aether wave because I'm choosing of my own will to have a little soundtrack, because every millennial needs a soundtrack when they, riff, when they weave. Everybody knows it's true, especially me, King of Hababoria. Come on. So this is the other thing: the dying body of the empire. I don't even like this framing, but why I'm going to use it? Because you can always think of any corpus as a vampire queen, the self-arising Dakini. That's true. So just because she's Babylon one moment doesn't mean she has to be at the next, right? Post-conceptual. Doesn't matter. You can apply whatever label that's not true. It's not primordially true. And then we say, okay, it's the Anne of the daughter. So we're moving away from that mother whore dichotomy. And if you need a perfect example, just watch Dandada. It's perfect. She's a virgin. They spread a rumor she's a whore. She's really a virgin. Both of them are. But both of them really like this boy. And yeah, she might choose to do it. We're gonna see, right? That's kind of the whole thing, is we're kind of like moving up to either some kind of excuse the pun, like climactic arc that may or may not happen. It may, our expectation or our bliss at that moment, it might not actually, it might be withdrawn. That's an actually interesting tantric idea. Not withdrawn physically. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about withdrawing your love even. I'm talking about just going inward, like Joseph said. It's not about even self-love. I don't really even like that framing. I know that some people will. That's okay. Totally fine. I'm flexible like that. But I think self-love is like too eternalist for me. So that's why I like self-respect. Because you're going to respect the body you're in. You're going to respect the life you have. And you're going to respect other people within it to a degree. Now, if they come for you, you better go for them. I'm serious. Headbutt them. That's a real res move, just to be honest. But I'm not saying I've done it or not done it. I've probably done it. I mean, I know I have. We won't talk about that. Okay. Like you guys think, all the Americans think that Canadians are so weak. We're actually tough. You just don't know.
Is it Aries rising?
I don't know, maybe, but it doesn't matter. I don't need.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need I don't need astrology to fight with people. Everybody knows that. I can fight anything. I'm good. Well, with that being said, I think it's a perfect, we'll start to close out. So we will do room shoutouts. I think it's perfect timing. You guys let me go. I got a nice outro. Got some, soundtrack. Got some soundtrack with bars, right? Because it's always bars. That's why you guys really come. It's really like for these little bits that end, like these ending bars, right? No, I'm kidding. I'm really proud of you guys. Sincerely proud. All of you. Yeah, Solar annoys me because he's smart and he brings up things that I think are interesting. And then it's obviously like a friendly rivalry. Two swordsmen in the wilderness competing. My Keela is obviously way bigger. Just saying. Everybody knows. That's how it goes, right? So that's it. So but I'm really proud of all of you. You did a great job. Thank you, Brother Matt, for stepping up. Thank you, Joseph Reed. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, of course, Brother Joshua, who, by the way, was like Well, Mike's always my favorite because Mike wrote me this really nice email, like DM. Not always, but I'm saying that yeah, he's my favorite right now because he's on the top of the list. He hasn't done any infractions, so nothing to like, you know. I'm King Yama. I'm marking like the little sins in your life. That's what I do. Even John would say because I have that Yamaraja thing, that yoga in my chart. So I just, you know, I'm like the Death King. I just all your sins I make sure I keep, and all my grievances. No, I don't do that. But Mike earned positive merit, so maybe that's a good lesson. How to burn karma. How to add merit. Well, merit's kind of like, yeah, be nice to monks, all that, you know. Uh, give money to the temple if you want. Give money to our temple, obviously. Temple Psychic Youth, Redux, obviously. But obviously I'm not, you know, we won't get into that this week, but yeah, we're different, we're unaffiliated, but maybe a continuation of the seed of the idea of discourse. Maybe we're more tantric, maybe we're going to kind of we was kings ourselves back into like the 8th century 6th century. We're like a secret society. Do you know what that's called in Sanskrit? It's a real word. Secret society. Guya Samaja. Well, isn't that interesting if you understand Sanskrit? Because Guya Samaja, or practice Buddhism, if you practice Buddhism, you should know what that word is. That is the name of one of the first tantric couples in Yabyum. It means the secret society tantra. Isn't that interesting? What did they do in the secret society? They called each other brother and sister. They didn't necessarily have sex, and if they did, it would be between a father and a mother, just like the tantras. And it would always be in consent, and it would be very specific, and it would be um, as part of the sadhana. Now we know these kinds of things go way off course. That's the big problem. Sure, it's powerful. Sure, it's great. So we have to reimagine it. We also have to reimagine that stuff too. That's the truth. Like there's an interesting sort of tension with the power dynamics and the age gap discourse. Like I've always only been comfortable like being with and dating people of my own age. That's just me, but it's my preference. So like I do kind of find it a little weird sometimes, but I try not to, you know, it's not a huge deal. I just kind of be flexible, but you know, I think that there is something about relating to the person that you're with as a no, as a, like generally generationally, and also like just as a human being. Like, can you see more of yourself in them? I think so. Maybe that's not true. Maybe Joseph's laughing at me and saying that's not true, but Joshua's saying yes. So I'm kind of true. I'm obviously hitting on something. I don't know. You don't have to take my life experience. I'm just saying, you know, ride with it, right? Just an idea. It's all speculative. That's all it is. So, Joseph, Mike, Joshua, Matt, and obviously Seth. Obviously, Joshua, please go ahead.
I would just say that maybe it's more economical to date somebody your own age, just because you might have more of the shared experiences and views on things. Whereas if there's more of a gap, you might have differences and that sort of thing, in which I'm just speculating, of course.
Let me speculate and tell you it is very good for someone if the other one is older and pays for everything. That's all I'll say about that.
For the record, I'm saying to be an anarch of your own kingdom earns younger. So don't. I think that is an interesting dynamic if that's how you choose to play the polarities. That's not my business. Just saying. I'm just gonna say as kind of the, you know, whatever I am. Rom accused me of being like male podcaster syndrome. Maybe that's fine. But the thing is that we don't. This isn't a podcast. Threshold Saints isn't a podcast. Threshold Saints is esoteric, Hyperborean deep cuts. It's for the archive. It doesn't matter. It's not a podcast. It's really not. It's a esoteric audio e-zine. You can even call it occult audio e-zine. I think that's what I wrote on IG. Right? That's what it is. That's really what it is. Yeah, you can say cringe, millennial bullshit. No, guys, you'll be thankful that we persevered through the dregs of the internet, dragging our little like late 90s riot girl bullshit with us through into this time. I'm being serious because like you want to talk about what punk is? Punk is to break klipas, not let the archons get in your face, and to be able to raise your head in defiance to the crown. That is the whole idea of tantra. It is not looking at God with defiance, as in like I defy you, I'm gonna own you. It's I actually recognizing that yourself in God and saying, oh, okay, the self is bullshit and empty, and letting that go and being Diamond Thunder. That's why I like Diamond Thunder. It's the perfect. If you stand outside and watch the storm any night, anytime it's storming, anytime it's raining, you can, anytime you see rain, you can think Tara, green Tara. I'm seeing green Tara, but it's not. It's non-phenomenological. But it's in the act of thinking and perceiving that maybe she arises. So what do you do with that green spark? When you see the lightning, do you think, oh, of my crazy images? You see like Chakrasamvara with his like consort Vajrayogini. Is that what you think of? Or do you think of like Vajrapani with his like his Dorji and he's like the thunder's raging around him? Or do you think of like Shiva even? You could say that, or Rudra or Mahakala or Bhairava. Like what do you like? You should see something, but not necessarily see something. It's not non-phenomenological. It's not in the phenomena. It's in your consciousness, in your perception. That's how they, if you want to call it they, quote unquote, the archons. The archons are also in your own mind. It's all like the fetters we allow to fuck with us. You think I'm perfect in this? I'm the worst. I'm not the worst as in like, because obviously I also joke that I am the mage king, right, of our group, but I'm really not. The thing is that it's funny because I'm also not, but I'm also like, yeah, I'm actually a good sorcerer. This is the truth that I've had to kind of reconcile it. I know I'm good at Kabbalah. I know I'm good at Tantra. I know I'm good at Buddhism. I kind of realize it because I interact with all these fucking morons all the time. I'm not talking about any of you. I'm talking about on the timeline, and you can see the deficiency. I can see, I don't even practice astrology. I can see the deficiency right in people's own work. You can see the logical flaws and how they get stuck in the system, and then they want to be like, oh, the planets are making me do this. No, you're making you do that. You're making the choice. The planets aren't you. Like grow up, please. It's so annoying. And like neo-pagans are the same, and that's why I find them so annoying. It's like that story has been told a million times, like 2,000 years ago. Move fucking forward. Move forward. Move with the aeon. I'm serious. It is so annoying to think of all these Himalayan and supposed Vajrayana practitioners won't at all fuck with me. And like they spew the worst bullshit. And I'm like, I wish the Dharma protectors would come and be on my side for once, because the reality is like there are so many people who are frauds. Just frauds. That's why I can never sell anything. That's why I don't want to. That's why I'd never monetize my podcast. I was like, if I'm going to speak about these things, it has to be in the open. It has to. It has to. So that's the problem, is that I recognize that there was a karmic implication, but then nobody else gives a shit. And I'm not saying like, woe is me or like, woe is our show. And I love our shows. I love my show and I love our shows. And it's like, it is that discursive relationship even between the two. That's why I reject the male podcast framing, because we're going to like do something different. Regardless if we do it for 5 months or 10 lifetimes, we've all karmically implicated each other. That's the fucked up and amazing thing. And we can also recognize that we are fucked up. Okay, we're post-millennial, right? We all know a lot of psychology is bullshit. We've all been fed bullshit from the media. We've all been fed bullshit from school. I went to private school. I didn't even go to public school. I know I got tons of bullshit. Okay? It's not people want to LARP as aristocrats. It's 2025. Like, give me a fucking break. That's what the right wing is reduced to, LARPing as aristocrats. Like, are you kidding me? Southern gentry. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I'm like, you guys are like playing into the worst stereotypes of what Europeans think about us. I'm putting myself in that. Like, I'll say for myself, I may not offer these like greater political ideas, but I will tell you, I try and deal with all of this in my own way. And part of that is to have these spaces. Part of that is to hear all of what you have to say and to sort of bring it in. I guess my role is to bring it into synthesis in a way and trying to figure out kind of a Kabbalistic understanding and say, you know what? Let's look at it. Let's think about it. And let's see where it takes us. Let's see, like, maybe it's not useful. That's okay. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with just exploring theosophically or through Rime or through speculative Kalachakra, which is just Rime? But you can say that we're just creating a synthesis. We're gonna see maybe it's a good seed, maybe it's not. That's okay. That's why it's speculative because we can throw it away. We can choose too. That doesn't mean I don't agree. Obviously, we know I'm super uncomfortable with all of this. Like a lot of what, not the money stuff, the market stuff, that's super interesting. But when it veered off into the other stuff, like obviously I'm uncomfortable. I want to go. Like I honestly was like, I'm gonna go out of the chat. I was like, It makes me uncomfortable. It's not a fake prudishness. It is legit. Makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to discuss it. I don't want to talk. But I stayed. Right. I let Solar get his little jokes in. Haha. That's why I had to. That's why I had to come for him. I'm really not mad at him, but I'm just saying it was annoying. I was annoyed. I was annoyed all day about it. So I'm just saying I'm gonna let it go now because I obviously told you guys, and this is obviously on YouTube. Fuck. But this is the reality. Is like I can't. I'm a Yamabushi swordsman too in my own way. So I'm just trying to do the best I can.
You know what a Sagittarius is, Jin?
What is it?
I learned this from my astrology teacher. Sagittarius is the priest and the pig.
The thing is, Joseph, is that you must admit that I have at least conquered, that initial carnal ground figure of the Dakini with a pig's head, maybe. Maybe not conquered, but maybe learned to wield more skillfully.
You're doing amazing. Really, 100%.
Thank you, Joseph.
I'm your biggest fan.
This is so funny because legit, it is kind of profound. Like I like getting praised, like everybody does. It's just that what you guys don't really know is that I am not, as you know, I've talked about in chat. Like this is not Asian parent way. It's like buso, not bad. That's the best you're gonna get. You're gonna get negated. That's what that is. Buso, not bad. That's good. That's what really, that's how they describe good. But it's really not bad. It's negated. It's neutral. True neutral. So of course I love it. Especially my vanity is like, you're like, oh, you're so smart. Yeah, I know. Thanks, 100%. I'm a great mage. Yeah, I agree. But the reality is like it's so much more than that. It is like what Joseph said. It's like our bodhicitta connection. It's like talking like this in spaces, like treating it as if, the world isn't perfect. We're not perfect. And that is the hardest. That's why the great work is so hard. That's the truth. Because you can LARP all you want until you bring it together. And it doesn't always work. That's the other rule of magic. It doesn't always work. So what do? Do you give up? No. Just like with magic, life's the same. It's all transmutable, changeable. So I'll just say for myself, I prefer to live in a very conservative way. That's just me. You can live however you want. But just for me, I choose that. So that's fine, right? I think that's good. I think that's much more Anna the daughter. Obviously, maybe someone has maybe I have referred to myself as the scion of Nuria, so I am in of myself, not the daughter. Of course not. That's not what a Dakini is. She doesn't arise in the world as a dude. Possible. She arises in the empty space, in the space of love. So, I think we did pretty good tonight. I think that's a great place to end it. Thanks, guys. Moonblade, John, Cassandra, Rom, Avi, Seth, Matt, Josh, Joseph, Jin, Solar, Mike. Pretty awesome. Obviously, there are. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens with how I love the format. I think it was great. If you want to sub to my show, so Threshold Saints, I promise I've got tons of episodes coming out. I know I had a couple, serious dog days. Probably got me down a little. I know I'm blaming astrology. But honestly, it's been an amazingly generative time. I have to say I appreciate all of you. And what does it mean to be like parasocial friends in 2025 on the internet, but also do like magic together? Because that's kind of what we do. Because magic, as Matt said, is real. It's motherfucking real. It's a lot to do with perception. It's a lot to do with will. It's a lot to do with emptiness. It's a lot to do with Rigpa. Diamond Thunder, of course. You can just use Diamond Thunder. I like Diamond Thunder. And it is not about spirits, really. It isn't. You want the truth of Buddhism? Yeah, we have the containers. Lots of husks. Lots of amazing tankas with worldly gods. You know where they go? Into emptiness. All of them. Every single one. Because that's really the primordial truth of the world. It's love and emptiness. So with that being said, I won't even end on a magic number. Well, kind of. Kind of. For me it is. Actually, we'll go for 4 more minutes. That'll be perfect. So what can I riff off? What did I have written? Oh, Vampire Queen. We could talk about Vampire Queen. You know I love Vampirella. So one idea is that you could resurrect the corpus through Diamond Thunder. It's a very Buddhist idea, right? So what does that require? Well, that's a very high yoga. So it'd be very hard to tame your own mind. Yes, Joshua, please go ahead.
As you said that, I couldn't help but think of Frankenstein's monster because it's animated by a bolt of lightning.
Well, that's the danger, right? That's the danger of synthesis. There are multiple dangers of synthesis. That's clearly one of them. Resurrecting a corpse that's unnatural. You could call it that. Something that isn't really meant to be. I know not everybody likes this idea because it kind of casts aspersions or casts judgment onto specific practices or texts, but I'm Rime. I've always said that. I've always said it's our time to discard, see what works. Is that relational? I would say that's anti-relational. If something is prescribed to be in deficiency, why would you abide by it? Aren't you all speculative Gnostics? Aren't you all speculative Kalachakrans? Are you not agents of your own mind, will, and body? If you want to do weird stuff, that's totally fine. Don't use spiritual justification to say why. Just be normal. That's a good rule of life. Try and be normal presenting. That's obviously not going to be perfectly aligned with my case because I've obviously always been a misfit. So, and I think that's true for a lot of us. So, but I'm just saying in particular, I think it's not always going to, conformity is the enemy in a way. sort of the American individualist inclination, should be cultivated, but it should also be cultivated in relation. So we're bringing together indigenous ontologies with a kind of old world, I don't know, kind of reimagining of like the class structures, but I don't even think that's clearly not even a sufficient way to describe at all 2025. It's just not. Like none of those isms are really enough. That's the reality. We kind of have to discard them all. That's what I think. I know a lot of people. I know like Matt's in Europe, and I care deeply about Matt. And Mookie. It's not about that. The reality is like we have to figure out a way to, as Solar said, very good tweet, right? We have to figure out a way to decouple. I'm already there, by the way. Hapaboria is already there. We're looking to recreate kind of our perception of the wheel turning, which I've always posited is here, and I sincerely believe it is here. And no, I am not Mormon. Because the reason is I don't agree with Mormonism. I'm not an eternalist. I think your spirit can be, I think you can be free, whatever you is. But I also think, I've been thinking a lot about this. I know I mention this every single night. Samsara is not a curse. It is a thing to understand, and it's something in relation to us. And why we're here, it is to rectify that. That's why you're here. So embody those qualities. Bodhicitta maxing. All the way. Left-hand path, okay. Right-hand path, okay. Middle path, that's the best. Bodhicitta all the way. Okay? Have a great night. Great job, co-hosts. Love you guys. Yes, I do. I have it in me. Sindare. But I can say it. I'm not that blocked up. Okay. Good night, guys. Peace out.